marvelous long reads.
DC Comics' Masters of the Universe from 2012 and continued into 2013 is absolutely amazing. If you're a He-Man fan that hasn't read it, you're missing out on a lot. So here we are. The art was redone, the lore was redone, the villains were now more evil and dark, with more fleshed out origin stories. So without further ado, let's cut to the chase. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2012, issue number 1, A Need Never Understood. The story begins with a dream, Adam's dream, one in which he is a glorious warrior, wielding a sword of destiny and fighting the forces of evil. In the dream, neither his enemy nor Adam is alone. They have formidable warriors on each side, people who are willing to put their lives at stake for their cause. Adam has been dreaming of this battle for a few months now, and every time, the good wins in this glorious battle. But when morning comes, Adam is back to his real life, the life of a simple woodsman, chopping wood, gathering supplies, and taking care of his ailing father. But today is different because today the sky is adorned by a multicolored falcon who seems to be quite interested in Adam. Then he is summoned by his father and we learn that he is suffering from dementia. Adam feeds his father with the utmost care and makes sure to make him believe that he is eating from the finest china and that the royal kitchens have made the finest meal for him. Days pass, Adam continues his life as a woodsman, and the falcon continues to visit him each day. Eventually, Adam does end up befriending the falcon and begins feeding it meat every now and then. One day, when he's feeding the falcon, its name suddenly dawns on him. Zor. The falcon's name is Zor, and Adam is so sure that it's as though he had known this name all his life, as though Zor had embedded it in Adam's mind itself. But now, more questions have arisen for Adam. Where does the falcon go when it's not visiting him? That night, he dreams of a battle again, but this battle is different. The skull of his foe and a mysterious castle loom in the background. And when Adam wakes up, he wakes up with an epiphany. He has to go. He needs to go. The urge is insatiable. And so Adam gathers his things, hands over the responsibility of caring for his father to his kind neighbor, and then departs. The neighbor is more than happy to oblige because Adam has helped them all their lives. This is the least they can do for him. When asked why he's leaving, Adam says, "I need to go. I'm filled with a need I don't quite understand." Adam travels for a few hours, but just as he's about to exit the forest, a menacing voice interrupts his thoughts, and Adam finds himself face to face with a horrifying creature that can surprisingly speak. Sharp claws, bony spikes jutting out of his fur, razor-sharp fangs, this creature warns Adam not to take a step further, and naturally Adam reels back in horror. Who is this? What is this monstrosity? And most importantly, how does it know his name? Adam tries to calm things down. He tells the creature that he's just a woodsman, but when he raises his axe to defend himself, the creature reels back and attacks. This is when Adam learns his name. This is Beast-Man, and Adam knows that he has no chance of winning if he fights the creature, and so Adam flees. He runs to the edge of the hill and then slides down it, and just when Beast-Man is about to grab him, Adam uses his skills as a woodsman, lodges his axe in a tree nearby, and changes his direction. Adam's skills are surprising him. His agility, his ability to perceive and anticipate Beast-Man's moves, all of this is new to him. Beast-Man corners him and lunges at him, and for the first time, Adam swings his axe. Beast-Man ends up drawing blood, but so does Adam. This time, when Beast-Man rushes him again, Adam grabs his axe and seemingly throws it at him. Adam misses. Beast-Man taunts him, but Adam wasn't really aiming at him. He was aiming at the branches behind him, and Beast-Man learns this the hard way when Adam dodges his attack, grabs the sharp branch, and sticks it into the back of Beast-Man's neck. Adam then winds up and punches Beast-Man across the face, which finally knocks him out. This is when Zor shows up, and Adam jokes that the Falcon was a lot of help in this fight. Adam then continues his journey and leaves the forest behind, and Zor is seemingly leading him to his unknown destination. Meanwhile, Beast-Man returns to Skeletor and tells him about the lost fight, and Skeletor orders him to gather everyone. Adam must be stopped at all costs, lest he find out more about his past. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2012, issue number 2, Not a Bird. We start this issue at Castle Grayskull, which for now belongs to Skeletor. Having dispatched the Masters of the Universe, Skeletor's power truly knows no bounds, and so when Beast-Man confesses to his failures, Skeletor doesn't take it lightly. He begins to choke Beast-Man using his telepathic powers because he had a simple job: to keep his nephew in the woods on the rare occasion he tries to escape his new dwelling. It was a simple task, but incompetent Beast-Man Beastman failed to carry it out, and so as Skeletor eats an apple, Beastman writhes and screams in pain in the background. Beastman begs for mercy and Skeletor finally relents and lets him go. Beastman thanks Skeletor over and over again, but Skeletor doesn't respond. He furiously walks back inside the castle, fuming at the fact that neither of his people can carry out their simple tasks. This is when a maid carrying some clothes bumps into Skeletor and his anger boils over. He grabs the woman by the throat, picks her up, and then turns her into stone. He then begins to ramble. He-Man was stripped of all of his memories, all of the Masters of the Universe were. It was Skeletor's doing. They're helpless and at his mercy. He is the most powerful being in Eternia. He has the power. Him and him alone, now and forever. After having rambled and turned a poor woman into stone, Skeletor's anger finally subsides and he walks off. Meanwhile, Adam has reached the desert of Eternia. He hasn't been here before, at least he doesn't remember it. Yet all of this feels too familiar. Every step he has taken since leaving his home feels twice trodden. Places he has never been have begun to trigger memories he shouldn't have. And then Zor lands on his shoulder and Adam begins asking it all the burning questions in his mind. Is this why Zor is leading them on this huge journey? To remind him things he has forgotten? But what is he supposed to remember? Places? People? What in particular is Zor trying to remind him of? But then they spot a huge cloud of sand approaching them and it's quite clear that riders are headed their way. Adam hopes that they are friendly. Hopefully he can get some water from them. While he waits, he chops off a cactus and squeezes it for a few drops of water. And then when the riders stop near him, Adam greets them. He says, "Greetings, desert riders. I am a stranger to these lands and find myself short on water. Could you point me in the direction of an oasis or spring source?" But this is when the riders confirm his identity. This is him indeed. This is the man they were sent to apprehend. And one of them instantly shoots a dart at Adam. The dart hits him in the neck and Adam faints instantly. He is then tied up and hauled onto the cyber camel and kidnapped by the men. Adam is taken to the arid spring oasis in the middle of the desert where it's surprisingly green and thriving with people. Adam is then brought in and thrown before their leader, who gloats that Adam can struggle as much as he wants. He won't ever get out of these chains because they were specifically designed for him. And this stands out to Adam. Why would this man, whom he has never seen before, get chains made to specifically subdue Adam? He is a simple woodsman after all. When Adam asks the man about it, the leader gloats and says, "Your uncle sends his regards." That and a writ of execution. Adam asks him about his uncle. Who might this uncle be? And though the man isn't keen on divulging his name at first, he eventually relents and tells Adam that his uncle's name is Skeletor. Adam has never heard this name before, yet it seems familiar. And this is when the man gloats that Skeletor is the architect of his downfall and the downfall of the Masters of the Universe. Adam screams that he has never heard the name Skeletor before, and the man simply laughs and tells him that of course he hasn't, because this is all part of Skeletor's plan. He then removes his scarf and introduces himself. His name is Cronus, but Adam can call him Trapjaw, because he is called that all thanks to Adam. He then orders his men to take Adam away to his cell because tomorrow Adam will petition for his life. That night, when everyone has slept, a woman comes to visit Adam. The guard stops her, but she makes the excuse that Cronus wanted to give water to the prisoner so that he is fit for his petition tomorrow. The guard lets her pass, but once she gets closer, Adam quickly remarks that Cronus never seemed like a man who would honor a fair fight, and the woman tells him that she is here on her own accord. Adam then remarks that he feels like he should know her name, and the woman tells him that she gets the same feeling. That is why she's come here in the first place. She then gives water to Adam, and when asked her name, she tells him that it's Tila. She has been a slave for Trapjaw's tribe all this while. This is when the guard pulls her away and decides that Adam has had enough water. Adam spends the night mulling over his thoughts. He remarks that why couldn't the guard go to sleep like the others? Why did he have to develop a sense of loyalty tonight? But then Adam is reminded once again of how odd this thought is. When has he been captured before? How does he know that the guards usually tend to ignore their duties at night? He hopes that tomorrow might bring some important answers, and then at sunrise, Adam is face to face with Trapjaw once again. When Adam remarks that he doesn't know how the system of petition works, Trapjaw tells him that it's quite a simple process. Adam will choose a person to petition for his freedom. If that person denies him, Adam and that person will fight to their deaths. Should Adam survive the fight, he will petition again and then again, until his petition is granted or he or those he might petition are dead. Adam defiantly asks what happens if he doesn't petition anyone, and Trapjaw throws an axe at him and tells him that he will die if that happens. Adam dodges the axe and ends up hitting one of Trapjaw's men in the head. This kills him instantly as his limp body is falling to the ground. Adam leaps into action. He grabs the dead man's sword and then assesses the situation around him. In this moment, Adam chides himself. Why did he go for the sword? What was he thinking? What was his body thinking? He then does a big sweep to push his enemies away and then starts running. Trapjaw's men fire projectiles at him, but Adam evades them. When more men block his path, Adam begins to attack them, and surprisingly, he's quite adept with a sword. He puts one of the men in a chokehold and kicks the one on the ground to knock him out. He continues fighting back and running. When the horde gets too close, Adam climbs on top of the huge crates and continues running. But then, just as the men are about to catch up to him, the ground begins to shake, and this is when Cronus throws away the crate from underneath him and confronts him. Skeletor sold him short. He never told Trapjaw that Adam would still remember his skills, that he would still have his warrior spirit, and if that's the case, then Trapjaw will finish the job himself. A flaming red scorpion appears on his arm, and then he turns his entire arm into a huge blade as Trapjaw slashes at Adam. Adam deflects the blow with his sword, but Trapjaw doesn't stop. He continues attacking Adam recklessly because it's time for revenge. And this intrigues Adam. Has he fought Trapjaw before? Trapjaw finally disarms Adam and then tells him that the missing arm is Adam's handiwork. Trapjaw is about to deal the final blow, but this is when the earth begins to shake again, and then a horde of cyber camels blasts through the oasis and flings Trapjaw away. Teela is on one of these camels, and she grabs Adam and hoists him up. As they make their escape, Teela tells him that she has a feeling that the two of them have a lot to talk about. That night, Skeletor visits the camp. He wades through it silently with Trapjaw by his side, who dares not utter a single word or excuse. And then Skeletor finally says, "Tell me again, why didn't you just slit his throat?" And Trapjaw has no words for Skeletor. Teela and Adam, when far away from the oasis, get down from the camel and decide to walk and talk. During their conversation, Teela calls him Adam, and Adam is surprised that she knows his name. How did that happen? He never gave it to her or Cronus. He then tells her that the same has been happening to him for a while now. He has begun to remember things he has no memory of. He is discovering skills he never trained for, and this is when Zor comes back and lands on his shoulder. Teela is startled, and Adam reassures her that this is his falcon, Zor. However, this is when Teela tells him that they have a lot to talk about, and that they should start with the fact that the falcon on his shoulder isn't a falcon at all. That is not a bird. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2012, issue number 3, Blood Tide. Teela and Adam have now reached the town of Sand's End. This is a port town, and to continue their journey ahead, they're going to have to cross the sea. The two of them share a meal, and Adam expresses how lost he feels with Teela's explanations. Her theory is that the two of them have been cursed, which Adam thinks is preposterous. Teela realizes that Adam is still upset about Zor, but this is when he tries to change the subject by pointing to the monstrous creature on his plate that counts for food in this town. Teela tells him to grow up and to stop changing the subject. She then forces him to confront the truth. Zor isn't a bird, it's a mystical construct, and that means someone's controlling it. And that someone, for whatever reason, led Adam to her. Somehow Adam knows that she's not lying, which freaks him out even more. The next panel shows us a huge ship with a massive dragon as its figurehead. This is the ship on which Teela has brought them passage. However, there were a few extra clauses involved in the exchange, something she didn't tell Adam about. Teela sold their cyber camels to buy passage, yes, but that was only half their fare. The rest of the fare is going to be worked off by Adam as a swabby. He laments the fact, whispers under his breath that he isn't going to trust Teela again, and she taunts him by petting Zor, and her hand goes right through his body. This is when she remarks that Zor has the illusion of weight enchanted on it. This is why Adam assumed it was real. Whoever created this mystical creature is quite an adept sorcerer. We then head to Castle Grayskull, where Skeletor seemingly is hosting a lavish dinner for an unknown guest. His subjects cower in terror in the background as his conversation reveals that this dinner guest is his prisoner. He then begins to ramble about how he thought that He-Man's power was derived from his sword, but really it was a conduit to channel Castle Grayskull's hidden power. Then the dinner guest is revealed, and we learn that it is the sorceress of Castle Grayskull in a catatonic state, under some kind of spell. He demands the secrets to the power of Grayskull, orders her to give in to his demands, but the sorceress simply keeps staring at him, dumbfounded, her face covered in blood or food. We do not know. know. Realizing that he isn't getting any answers today, he sends the sorceress away with his minions to be force-fed her food again. Meanwhile, back on the ship, Teela and Adam are sparring, and Adam is losing to her again for the upteenth time. She tells him to fight back, but Adam tells her that he can't channel his abilities. It just happens when it's needed the most, when he's in grave danger. Teela lets him be, and this is when the captain of the ship commends her skills and tells her that maybe she can put them to use when they are eventually attacked on this journey. Teela mentions the glinting scale that has been following them since last night, and the captain tells her that it's likely Merman and his minions. He thinks the sea belongs to him, and that he rules it. The idea of sea monsters terrifies Adam, and then, as if on cue, with a loud crunch of the wood, a huge tentacled monster plops onto the deck, and perched on top of it is Merman himself, who remarks that it's quite convenient for Adam to have shown up in his territory. He remarks on their previous encounters, and this time he says that their previous fights have rarely been with Prince Adam. Prince. This word sticks out to both Teela and Adam, but neither remembers anything about it. And though they have met in the past, for him, Merman can't help but gloat. He formally introduces himself as the Omnipotence, the first son of the Ocean Lord, Master of Depths, absolute monarch of the seven tides, the singular wonder and grand presence, Nauticus Aquaria, Merman the First. Everyone audibly groans at his pompous introduction, and when it's clear that neither the captain nor the two of them will comply with his demands, Merman orders this creature to attack them. Instantly, a tentacle shoots out of the water, grabs Teela by the leg, and hauls her away. She curses loudly, and Adam instantly jumps into action. He tries to chop down the tentacle with his sword, but when that does not work, he grabs an axe from one of the sailors and hits it with all his might. The creature yelps and lets go of Teela, but unfortunately, she is flung into the sea. The ship begins to sink, and while Adam is distracted, Merman elbows him in the gut. He then smacks him across the face twice, pushes him down, but then Adam defends himself and then kicks Merman in the gut. An enraged Merman then grabs a huge crate and lifts it up to smash Adam, but this is when a sword pierces his chest and the crate falls down on top of his body. Adam has Teela to thank for his rescue, and this is when she chides him for his actions, because she learned the hard way that she doesn't know how to swim. She was forced to climb the tentacle of the creature to get back on deck. They think the battle is over, however, this is when Merman stands up. He has superior healing when at sea, and Teela striking him from behind was a very dishonorable move. Her father would have disapproved. And this is when Teela angrily screams that her father sold her into slavery. And this is when Merman laughs because Skeletor's spell has made her lose all her dignity. But he doesn't want to face Skeletor's wrath like Trapjaw and Beastman, and so Merman uses his powers to raise a huge tide, which he sends splashing down onto the ship to drown everybody. Adam grabs Teela and leaps away in the nick of time, and though the ship is destroyed and Merman assumes that they're dead, he's wrong because the two of them have managed to grab onto some debris in order to avoid being drowned. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, 2012, issue number 4, Cauldron of Doom. We start this issue in the Harmony Sea. Adam and Teela have been stranded for a day or two now, and they have managed to fashion a makeshift raft out of the debris from the ship. Adam is trying to catch some fish while Teela is busy making fun of his makeshift fishing pole. They then talk about what Merman said. Teela is flabbergasted that Adam could forget that he was a prince, and he tries to explain to her once again how he doesn't remember a thing. That's the reason he couldn't fight her on the ship, because he has no control over what he remembers or doesn't. Teela's frustration turns into anger, which is redirected at Zor as she angrily tells the bird to go and find them land and be of some help. As they continue to talk, they both realize that they have been having the same dreams of heroism, power, thwarting evil, and some guy with a skull for a face. Before they can discuss their dreams more, Zor drops a coconut on Teela's head and flies away. She angrily screams at him again, but then they quickly figure out that they must be near land if Zor was able to find a coconut. Sure enough, there's an island in the distance, and Adam quickly begins to fashion 2 oars out of the remaining debris. They hit land soon and disembark, armed with makeshift weapons. They both don't like how they feel on the island. It feels like someone's watching them, and right on cue, a sphere of poisonous gas explodes near them the very next second, which instantly knocks them out. A couple of men led by Man-at-Arms walk out of the woods and then tie up Adam and Teela. They all mock the two of them, but for some reason Man-at-Arms remains silent. He simply follows the orders of his queen and keeps staring at Teela. He is sure he has seen her somewhere before. As they carry Adam and Teela back to their castle, one of them makes the mistake of making a lewd remark about Teela. This is when Man-at-Arms' parental instincts kick in and he instantly knocks him out. The castle then comes into view and it is huge. It juts out of the side of a volcano and is as big as the volcano itself. And then we are introduced to the men's master. It's Evil Lyn herself, and Man-at-Arms reassures her that Adam and Tila's restraints have been enchanted to ensure they don't escape. Evil Lyn notices Man-at-Arms' eyes fixated on Tila, and this is when he confesses to her that Tila feels familiar to him. Adam and Tila meanwhile whisper to each other, and Tila declares the woman a lunatic. This is when Adam tells her that her name is Evil Lyn, and they both are dumbfounded after this confession because this is Adam's spotty memory acting up again. This is when Evil Lyn interrupts their conversation and demands an answer. But what was the question? Tila quickly tells Adam to say yes. A woman like her always wants to hear yes after all. Look at the way she has been talking to her father. And this sudden confession from Tila leaves Adam dumbfounded. Tila is as confused as he is. However, this is when Man-at-Arms steps in and punches Adam for ignoring Evil Lyn. Adam quickly says yes to whatever was asked, and thus Evil Lyn orders her men to have the cauldron prepared for tonight's event. The men take Adam and Tila away, and sometime later we see Evil Lyn talking to Skeletor using her magic. She reassures Skeletor that Adam and Tila will end up dead after tonight's event, and Skeletor asks her why she can't slit their throats right now. Evil Lyn tells Skeletor that he's being preposterous. The two of them are meant for the cauldron, and they will be sacrificed tonight. It will be a huge festival, and Skeletor should really try and attend it. And this is when Skeletor somewhat understands her motives. Evil Lyn wants a spectacle. The message ends with Skeletor warning Evil Lyn not to invoke the name He-Man ever again. And then we see him conversing with one of his minions, who appears as a flaming skull. They discuss Evil Lyn and how Skeletor needs to keep her around and entertain her demands because she is almost as powerful as him. He then expresses his frustration. Why do all of his minions have to toy with Adam and Tila before killing them? And this is when his minion explains to him that it's because they all have histories with Adam and Tila. Lost fights, humiliation, and they want proper revenge. Just like Skeletor, he too deserves a slow and painful death for Adam and Tila. And this is when Skeletor refutes this fact. His minion dares him to step in if that isn't the case, because he knows Skeletor fears losing his hold over Castle Grayskull. He has been trying to tap into its power for years now. He has tortured the sorceress to within an inch of her death, yet he is no closer to getting that power than the first day he invaded the castle. In a fit of rage, Skeletor grabs the minion and is about to smash him against the wall. But this is when the minion offers him a word of advice. What if the sorceress isn't the key to the power of Grayskull? What if she wants Skeletor to believe that she is? Skeletor decides that it's time to torture the sorceress to death, and to prevent this conversation from getting outside, he kills the servant who was attending to them. The same night, Man-at-Arms is unable to sleep and he confronts Tila. He thinks she has enchanted him because he keeps dreaming of her. However, this is when Tila steers the conversation in a different direction by bluntly asking him if he's her father. Man-at-Arms is at a loss for words. He simply stares at Tila for a minute and then walks away. This is when Adam and Tila realize that they aren't the only ones with missing memories. And this is when Adam and Tila realize that they aren't the only ones with missing memories. And this is when Adam speculates that maybe all of them are being manipulated by whoever created Zor. Sometime later, the two of them are brought into Evil Lyn's cauldron chamber, where a narrow glass pathway hangs above a huge cauldron full of mysterious liquid. A huge crowd is gathered in the stands to watch them fight. Whoever wins will get to live while the other dies. The crowd cheers, but Adam and Tila don't buy Evil Lyn's promises. They take a fighting stance, thinking that they will fight their way out of this, but this is when Evil Lyn waves her hand. Their shackles fall off and the entire cauldron beneath them erupts in flames. This catches them off guard, and when they don't start fighting immediately, Tila is hit in the shoulder by an arrow. So this is the deal. They fight or get shot to death by arrows. They begin sparring with each other, and Adam toys with the idea of sacrificing himself to save Tila. Tila tells him that he's being stupid. Evil Lyn would never honor her hollow promises, but Adam isn't convinced. This is when we see Man-at-Arms mutter under his breath that he would kill Evil Lyn if Tila dies. And surprisingly, Evil Lyn seemingly hears this insult. She turns around and screams at him to explain himself, and Man-at-Arms makes the excuse that he was simply thinking out loud. The fight continues to rage on, and this is when Zor intervenes and claws at Adam's face, forcing him to lose his footing, which causes him to fall off the glass bridge and plummet to his death. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, 2012, issue number 5, Illusory Delusion. Teela screams for Adam as the flames engulf him. She falls to her knees, however, this is when Evil Lyn laughs and mocks her. The night has just begun and they want to be entertained for hours. These flames are enchanted. The more blood is shed, the more they heat up, and neither of them has shed a single drop of blood, and the night is long. Evil Lyn uses her powers to pick Adam out of the flames and plop him back up on the glass bridge. Adam tells Teela that it was warm down there and that Evil Lyn is telling the truth. She plans on slow roasting them through the night. This is when Adam is shot in the leg, and Evil Lyn forces them to fight again. As they spar, Adam proposes a more insane idea to Teela that might help both of them escape. The cone on which the cauldron sits isn't flush with the wall, which means that they can hypothetically jump down into the gap and make their escape. Teela thinks he has lost it. He is talking about jumping down into a 3-foot gap that they don't know where it leads. If they go head first, they will break their skulls. If they go feet first, they will break their legs. However, this is when Adam grapples Teela and carefully pushes her over the edge. He tells her to roll when she hits the ground, so as not to break her legs, and then jumps in after her. They both plummet for a good few feet, but the bumps against the wall slow them down. An enraged Evil Lyn orders Man-at-Arms to go after them, who with each passing moment seems to hate her more and more. He begrudgingly leaves, and then we see that Teela and Adam have survived and are in some sort of cavern that continues to lead underground. Teela is naturally furious with Adam for risking their lives. She tells him that the next time he gets the inkling to jump into an unknown pit, he should be the one to jump first. They continue to bicker as they head deeper into a cave, while above, Evil Lyn reluctantly informs Skeletor how she managed to misplace Adam and Teela. Skeletor is furious, but she reassures him that she will have them retrieved soon. She then remarks that it's all that silly bird's fault, and this is when Skeletor realizes that he has been played by the sorceress. He rushes into her cell, hoists her up, and demands to know where in his mind she was hiding her psyche all this while. The sorceress mocks Skeletor because she wasn't hiding at all. She was in the memory he never visits, his only pleasant memory. Skeletor throws her against the wall and then slams her against it again. He then grabs her by the throat, tells her that she isn't that precious to him that he would forgive such a betrayal, and then snaps her neck and seemingly kills her. Adam and Teela, meanwhile, continue to head deeper underground. The walls have changed. They are no longer rock and uneven ground. Instead, they are stone bricks and proper stairs. They're both baffled by this entire facility existing underground. What is this place? Zor continues to follow them as they finally stumble upon an ancient door with strange runes all around it. They both investigate it, and when Adam touches the runes, it suddenly begins to glow. Then, with a huge blinding flash of light, the door becomes translucent and the two of them apprehensively step through the barrier. Teela notices how the door only became active when Adam touched it, and then they both gasp as they spot the sword lodged in the rock in the center of the chamber. Adam is sure that this is where Zor was meant to lead them. He can feel it in his gut. But then suddenly a loud roar distracts them, and the very next second they are ambushed by a huge feline. Teela searches the chamber for anything she could use as a weapon, but comes up empty-handed, and this is when Adam, in a moment of courage, ends up punching the feline on its nose. The cat steps back for a moment, but this only angers it more. It then turns its eyes on Teela and leaps at her, and Adam uses this opportunity to jump on its back. Teela rushes in to help, but this is when she is stopped and captured by Man-at-Arms and his men. To them, Adam is as good as dead, so they decide to come back for him when things have calmed down and he has been dead for a while. Teela pleads with them to save him, but they simply continue to drag her away. Now that he's alone, Adam knows that his only shot at survival is the sword in the rock. He prays that his gut feeling is right, rushes for the sword, and begins to pull it out of the rock. The cat digs its claws into his back, and just when it's about to go in for the killing blow, Adam manages to pull the sword out, and with a bright flash of light, he is instantly transformed into who he used to be, He-Man. All around Eternia, everything changes. Man-at-Arms and the other allies have their memories return. Evil Lyn angrily screams at her men's failure, while Merman, Beastman, and Trapjaw cower in fear. Adam's father finally remembers who he is, and so does his populace, including the woman taking care of him, who instantly recognizes him as their king. Skeletor, meanwhile, goes insane. He boasts and dares He-Man to come face him at Castle Grayskull. Last time he took their memories away. This time, he will take their lives. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2012, issue number 6, The Power. Evil Lynn frantically orders her minions to gather her precious things so that they can escape to Castle Grayskull before He-Man and Teela get here. She sets one of her servants ablaze when he dares soil her mood, but then when she opens the front door to leave, she finds her kingdom in ruins, and He-Man and Teela standing before her with some very important questions. Meanwhile, back at Castle Grayskull, Skeletor's flaming skull minion blames him for his own demise. He brought this upon himself. He could have killed Adam when he had the chance, could have killed him when he wiped his memory, could have killed him when he was hiding in the woods, and he had more chances when he was escaping. But no, Skeletor kept sending his minions and being disappointed when they failed. An enraged Skeletor grabs the skull and throws it out of the castle in anger. And then when Beast-Man and the others come to him to discuss preparations, he turns his anger on them. Eventually, he allows them to fortify the castle if that is what will ease their worries. Power of Grayskull or not, Skeletor is Skeletor, firstborn of the darkness, lord of the bleak dominion. He can take on He-Man all by himself. Meanwhile, the Masters of the Universe, along with King Randor, can convene in Veritas to discuss their next move. He-Man almost convinces them that they should let He-Man attack Skeletor all by himself. Skeletor would be expecting an army, which is why this is the perfect time to subvert expectations. Everyone seems to agree, but then King Randor urges everyone to vote on what should be done, and He-Man is unfortunately outvoted. Sometime later, he is sulking outside when Teela comes and joins him, and this is when he tells her that he will be going to attack tonight, regardless of what the others think. Teela is outraged because now she will have to tag along with him, otherwise she will have to lie to the others. Adam always does this. He's always done this since they were kids. He would decide to do something stupid and then Teela would be forced to tag along. He tells her that she doesn't need to come if she doesn't want to, but that ship has sailed. And so, at night, Skeletor, Beast-Man, and Evil Lynn await He-Man's arrival, and Skeletor tells them that he can feel him coming. They once again discuss the power of Grayskull, and Skeletor reveals to them that he had been fooled by the sorceress and her power. She had made it seem as though the castle held the power of Grayskull, but when she died, the aura of the castle faded, which means that the power of Grayskull lies in He-Man's sword. Evil Lynn tells Skeletor that if that's the case, then he shouldn't have hidden the sword underneath the volcano. He should have used it or at least kept it close when he had the chance. And this prompts Skeletor to seal her mouth with magic. And then the attack begins with a loud explosion outside the castle. He-Man charges into battle on Battle Cat, while Teela rides her golden unicorn. The fight is overwhelming, and for a moment, Teela regrets tagging along. But then with a huge thunderous blast of lightning, Skeletor appears before them to face He-Man himself. Teela backs away, and after exchanging a few words, Skeletor reveals the sorceress' decapitated head to get under He-Man's skin. The idea works, and He-Man begins to attack his uncle with all his might, with the intent to kill. Skeletor laughs because this is exactly what he wanted. He slams his staff into the ground, which splits the ground open all around them and separates them from the battlefield. Most of Skeletor's men succumb to the depths of the earth, and Teela and Battle Cat barely manage to escape in the nick of time. He-Man slashes the power sword at Skeletor, but he blocks it with his staff. Skeletor shoots a magical bolt at He-Man, and he dodges it. He punches Skeletor, and in return, he is blasted with magical energy again. This disarms He-Man, and Skeletor taunts our hero because he is now powerless. The power of Grayskull lies within the power sword, but this is when He-Man gets up, grabs Skeletor's staff, and then tells him that he is right about one thing. The sword does channel the power of Grayskull, but it does not have that power. He-Man has that power. He is the one true chosen host. He is the power. He then punches Skeletor across the face, which breaks his jaw, and sends him tumbling into the pit he had created himself. Teela asks He-Man if this would kill Skeletor, and he lies to her that the flames would take care of that. He-Man throws Skeletor's staff into the pit, which lands near Skeletor's aching body, as he is now once again face to face with his minion, the Flaming Skull. The Skull blames him, explains to Skeletor why he can't have the power of Grayskull, because it lies within He-Man. And though Skeletor tries to deny it, the Skull takes him away to its realm. It is now revealed that the Skull was Orko. After having betrayed the Masters of the Universe, he is now betraying Skeletor. But he won't kill him yet, because Orko has use for Skeletor in his own master plan. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2013, Issue Number 1, Lost Sister. We now start our story in Eternos, the capital city of Eternia, and home to the Masters of the Universe in King Randor's palace. Today the streets are filled with the populace, for they all come to mourn the death of one of the biggest mages of the realm, the sorceress of Castle Grayskull. Man-at-Arms, aka Duncan, and Prince Adam are also talking about the sorceress, who, unbeknownst to Teela, was her mother. Prince Adam doesn't think that it was a good idea to keep this from Teela, but Duncan had his own reasons. He knew that the sorceress had responsibilities she needed to fulfill, responsibilities she wouldn't give up to be a good mother, and so he made the difficult choice not to tell Teela about her. After all, a mother who died when she was a child is better than a mother who willingly chose to abandon her. After all, if Adam is so concerned with the truth, why didn't he tell her about it? He too has known the truth since he was a child, and this is when Adam says that it wasn't his tale to tell. They then walk by Teela's room, and this is when she steps out, and to everyone's surprise, Teela has dyed her hair red. Adam teases her about it, and Teela warns him that he's walking on thin ice. As they walk towards the public speech, Adam jokes that they now have a royal rooster, and Teela stares daggers at him, but doesn't say a word. Then King Randor gives a long and heartfelt speech in memory of the sorceress, and this is when everyone learns that the goddess's name was Teela Na. As Duncan, Adam, and Teela bicker under their breath, we learn that Teela isn't fond of mages, nor was she fond of the sorceress. However, this is when she loudly asks her father about her name, when she realizes that she was named after the sorceress. Duncan tells her that they will talk about this later, and this is when Adam decides it's a good time to change the subject and joke about Teela's hair once again. Teela elbows him in the chest and then leads him away under the pretext that he is too saddened by this event. This also gives her the chance to escape the proceedings early, which she never liked in the first place. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of Eternos, in a part of the land that was destroyed by Skeletor, a farmer is busy tilling the land with his boys. The two boys thought this was going to be an easy job, but their father is busy teaching them that farming is hard work. This is when a huge blast sends the three of them flying away, and unfortunately the two boys pass away from their injuries. Then an army of soldiers in mech suits walks in through a portal led by a menacing woman with a horrifying mask. She checks in with the other units, and we learn that this is a full-on invasion of Eternia. Forces like these have entered the planet at the site of every major city, and this unit has been sent to capture Eternos. And then we learn that these are the forces of Hordak, and the woman is his daughter, Despara. Despara promises to conquer Eternia for her father, and though Hordak is pleased, the way he treats her and talks to her tells us that he keeps her on a short leash and that he wouldn't mind disposing of her in case of a failure. We then see Decker, Duncan, Adam, and Teela inside the palace as they discuss Randor's long-winded speech, and as they converse we hear Teela propose the idea that the sorceress may not be dead after all. She was the best mage in the realm. Maybe she sent her spirit to possess a different creature or being before Skeletor snapped her neck. Teela begins to remove her armor as she gets ready to retreat to her room, but as soon as she enters it, everyone is knocked back by a huge blast that seemingly happens inside. They all rush to Teela's aid and find her trapped under a bookshelf, and it doesn't take long for everyone to figure out that they're under attack. Despara leads a huge attack against the castle. They have mech tanks that crawl, taking down the fortifications with ease, and the technological difference between Eternia and Hordak's forces is astounding. Adam tells the rest of them to get the castle's defenses up, and then he rushes to the roof and transforms into He-Man. He-Man's energy signature is easily caught by Despara. She was looking for him. Hordak had warned her about him. Meanwhile, up on the roof, He-Man is joined by Teela, who knew he would be here because Adam likes to transform out in the open to avoid collateral damage. This is when Despara scales the wall and confronts them. She instantly blasts Teela with red energy and tells her that servants should remember their place, and an enraged He-Man slams his sword on the ground to knock her away. The force from the shockwave removes Despara's helmet. Teela urges He-Man to attack in this instance, to let go of his rule of not hitting a woman, but He-Man continues to hesitate. This is when Despara removes the hand from her face, and Teela gasps because she recognizes her face. Teela knows this blonde-haired woman by the name of Adora. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2013, Issue Number 2, Past Imperfect. We continued the story where we left off. He-Man holds Despara at bay as he asks Teela who Adora is. Teela tells him that up until now she thought Adora was a figment of her imagination, but now she has come to believe otherwise. And to everyone's surprise, even Despara seems to remember Teela from her childhood as she utters her name. Adam asks how Despara knew Teela, and the woman says that she only knew Teela as a dream from her childhood. But this is enough talk for Despara. She doesn't care about their or her past. She begins attacking the two of them again, and true to his morals, He-Man keeps defending himself and doesn't fight back. Teela is forced to jump in and attack Despara. And though Teela's skills are formidable, she lacks the power to match those skills. Despara comments on the same and then uses her powers and chucks her over the wall. A frantic He-Man smacks Despara away and jumps after Teela, only to realize that she managed to grab onto part of the wall. As He-Man flies past her, Teela tells him to try and land on one of Despara's men as she turns her gaze towards the horizon. She finds the entire capital on fire. He-Man breaks his fall by dropping on one of Despara's men, and seconds later, she too lands beside him to continue the fight. She attacks once again, and He-Man continues to defend. However, this is when Teela drops on top of her, and He-Man knocks her out with the flat of his blade. They then try to regroup, only for Stratos to fly in and inform everyone that King Randor has ordered everyone to surrender and regroup at Castle Grayskull. Despara's forces are killing civilians everywhere in order to force a surrender, and King Randor has sadly complied. He then swoops down, grabs Teela, and then flies away with her despite her vocal protests. Not pleased by his father's decision, He-Man turns his back on Despara, and she finds this move quite amusing. But before she can strike him down, Cringer enters the battle and mauls Despara's face. He-Man then jumps on top of him after Despara has been injured enough, and the two of them start making their way towards Castle Grayskull. Despara reels in pain, but orders her men to stay back unless they want to die. She then orders them to fetch their restoration mages and vows revenge on He-Man. At Castle Grayskull, everyone has gathered, all the Masters of the Universe, including Mechaneck, which Teela finds to be funny. They joke and banter about his extending neck for a bit, and then He-Man changes the subject and asks Teela to tell everyone about her imaginary friend. This surprises everyone, including her father, Man-at-Arms. But before Teela can explain herself, King Randor enters the room and explains the situation to everyone. He knows everyone is mad that they had to surrender, but unfortunately, all of Eternia has fallen. Every major city and town in Eternia was attacked. Civilians were killed until the defending forces surrendered. This was a pre-planned, strategically executed attack to bring about the downfall of Eternia. The technology they use is alien to them, almost borderline magic, albeit a different kind from theirs. Their foe is merciless, their foe is relentless, and this is when King Randor reveals that their true foe isn't Despara, but the one who commands her, Hordak. Everyone gasps. Hordak is a myth, a vampiric creature of legend. He can't be real, can he? And this is when Randor tells everyone that Hordak is very much real. The power of Grayskull binds him to Etheria, but his minions are free to invade and roam Eternia as they please. King Randor was only a child when he was nearly abducted by one of Hordak's minions. Meanwhile, Despara is busy assessing the destruction of Eternia from one of her mech spider tanks. The coast has been sealed off by 3 battalions. Suspected and known mages are being rounded up for eradication, and the agricultural infrastructure of the country is being systematically destroyed. She is then informed of all the heroes gathered at Castle Grayskull, and Despara finds this ironic. They make their final stand in the home of the one who set all of this in motion all those years ago. She orders 2 of the battalions to maintain a strict perimeter of the castle. Anyone seen moving is to be killed. Anyone except He-Man and Teela, because she is going to take care of them herself. That night, Adam, who is still in He-Man's form, meets up with his father to discuss Hordak in the library. They discuss Hordak and the attack that happened when King Randor was a child. He tells Adam that he would have been taken had it not been for his uncle, Keldor. He-Man is baffled. Skeletor saved his father, but King Randor explains that Keldor had yet to transform into Skeletor. But that is a tale for another day. This is when Teela rushes in and tells them that Hordak's forces have sent an emissary, and we learn that it is a projection of Despara. She is here to offer them a deal. If He-Man surrenders, the rest of them will be spared, and instead, Despara and he will fight to the death. But they all stand defiant, even joke about Despara's new scar, and so this seals the deal. Despara will wage an all-out attack against them in 12 hours, and they have this time to contemplate where they went wrong. He-Man then brings up the fact that Teela should tell everyone how Despara was her imaginary friend, but Teela is not the only one caught off guard in this moment. Randor is too, and that's because Despara's face reminded him of his wife, Marlena. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2013, issue number 3, Siege. Teela is now recounting her childhood and how she came to know Despara. She was always a bright kid too smart to fit in with her peers, but unfortunately too slow to keep up with her father. So she would regularly play and read by herself while he worked and fulfilled his duties as the defender of the realm. He-Man continues to tease her about her childhood every step of the story, but Teela is used to his stupid remarks by now, so she ignores him. One day, Teela was roaming the castle and yearning for a friend who was a girl, but as far as she knew, she was the only little girl in the castle. And so, armed with her wooden sword, Teela was spending some alone time in Gideon's Bloom Arbor when she heard a little girl giggling, and this intrigued her. Teela followed the voice and found herself face to face with Adora, who was busy playing with insects. The first meeting was quite odd. Teela confronted the girl directly, which spooked Adora. She turned around and began to run away, only to then vanish into thin air. Teela chalked the entire encounter up to her overactive imagination, but that was until she spotted Adora in the arbor once again. Teela was busy reading in the room overlooking the arbor when she saw Adora, and this time she approached the girl cautiously. The two of them quickly bonded over their shared interest in books, and they would sit in the arbor and read regularly. It didn't take long for them to go through half of the books in the kids section, but in that time, Teela realized that no one else could see Adora but her. Adora had told her that she wasn't allowed to leave the garden, something about not being supposed to be this far from home, and not being able to find her way back if she strayed too far. And then one day, Adora simply stopped coming. Teela grew up, and though she missed her, she chalked Adora up to being a figment of her imagination. This is when Mechanex's extended neck appears on the balcony to inform Teela and He-Man that the enemy's attack perimeter is in motion, and that they are needed on the ground by Man-at-Arms and King Randor. His sudden arrival naturally scares the soul out of Teela, who tells him to be a little less discreet next time. He-Man is joined by Roboto as they rush outside, only to find that Teela has already scaled the walls to reach the king and Man-at-Arms before them. King Randor tells them that the movement means that the enemy is trying to soften them before the first assault 12 hours later. However, this is when explosions ring all around them, as an assault is mounted by Despara's forces. They all rush back into the castle, and this is when Despara shows up without her helmet this time, flanked by 4 of her guards. She orders them to take care of the others and to leave Teela for her. And so the attack begins. He-Man and King Randor stand their own, and so does Teela for a moment. But then Adora brings up their past and how she knows that Teela still feels compassion for her. Teela tries to change the subject by asking Despara why she didn't teleport into the castle with more forces. Maybe it's the logistical limit of their technology? Or maybe she is soft and doesn't want to risk losing her men? Despara mocks Teela for still having a one-track mind, and then, unfortunately, Roboto being disarmed distracts Teela. This is when Despara chides Teela for taking her eyes off her foe, and then stabs her with a sedative. Now that Teela has been captured, her mission is complete, and she and her men teleport out of the castle instantly. He-Man was able to spot Despara before she left, and he informs everyone that she took Teela. Man-at-Arms is furious. His daughter has been taken while the others are puzzled, because why not take the king instead? Why Teela? Man-at-Arms wants to charge after Despara. He wants to take on Hordak's forces head-on, and this is when He-Man steps in and reminds him of his duties as the leader of the Royal Guard. Duncan is clearly furious, but he doesn't fight back once Adam pulls rank. He promises Duncan that he will find Teela and get her back. And though Roboto remarks that He-Man didn't do the right thing, He-Man reminds Roboto that Man-at-Arms is the defender of the realm. He needs to prepare for the upcoming battles. Back on Etheria, in the Fright Zone, Shadow Weaver, the woman who raised Adora and brainwashed her to believe that she was Hordak's daughter, expresses her concerns about Teela. What if this childhood friend undoes all they have done? And this is when, through their conversation, we learn that Adora is actually King Randor's daughter, and he is confident enough in his brainwashing that he thinks that Tila's presence will have no effect on Despara. Back at Castle Grayskull, King Randor summons his son because he knows he is going to go out alone to rescue Tila, and Randor forbids him from doing so. This is exactly what Hordak's forces expect him to do, and they will be prepared to ambush him. Randor wants him to think smartly and think of how he can aid in upcoming battles. A furious He-Man storms off when his father pulls rank, and despite his king's orders, He-Man decides to defy them. He confides in Cringer and decides that he and Battlecat will head out into battle alone. But this is when a familiar voice echoes in He-Man's mind and tells him that he shouldn't throw his life away so easily. He may have the power of Grayskull, but this time the threat is too big, and even the power of Grayskull can't get them out of this mess. He-Man realizes that this is the sorceress's voice, and she tells him that the castle is powerful, and her essence was trapped in it once she was killed. It is a curse and a blessing, but a necessity to ensure Grayskull's survival. Then suddenly the wall beside He-Man opens up, a mysterious doorway appears, and blinding white light begins to emanate from it. The sorceress beckons him to walk through the door, and He-Man does as he's told, but he also remarks that Duncan was right. The sorceress is a bad mother, but she has served as the sorceress well, and so he decides to trust her once again. Once He-Man walks through, the doorway vanishes, and we will find out in the next issue where He-Man ends up. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2013, issue number 4, Fires of Eternity. Tila, now captured and imprisoned, sits and pouts in her cell while Despara sits on the throne in front of her without uttering a single word. They both stare at each other, and when Tila finds Despara scratching her new scar, she smirks, and this prompts Despara to walk up to her and whisper, "I loved you like a sister." And this instantly breaks Tila. She tries to hold her ground, but when Despara continues staring daggers at her, Tila's tears betray her, and she begins to weep. As for Castle Grayskull, the area has been surrounded by Despara's forces. Man-at-Arms and Mechanic are doing their best to fortify their defenses, but it's clear that they're outnumbered and outgunned. The enemy is simply toying with them, for if they wanted, this would all be over in an instant. Mechanic and Man-at-Arms share a conversation, and we learn that Duncan takes relief in the fact that Tila's dead body hasn't been displayed yet, which means that she still lives. Mechanic goes on to assure him that Tila can hold her own, and this is when Duncan asks him why he still supports Tila. She always mocks him, makes jokes about his abilities, and this is when Mechanic recounts how Tila was the one who saved him from being bullied as a kid by telling the others that he was her boyfriend. Mechanic thinks that her jokes are a simple price to pay for Tila's friendship, and Duncan is pleasantly surprised to learn about a new side of his daughter through this conversation. And then Despara's forces attack, which forces both of them to fall to the ground and brace themselves. Meanwhile, He-Man is being led through a tunnel by Zor. He tries to ask the sorceress some important questions, but her answers are full of riddles, and this frustrates him. The sorceress then says that Hordak is the true foe. Adam's sister is but a mere instrument to his means, and this confuses He-Man even more. What is she saying? He doesn't have a sister. He never did. But the sorceress refuses to explain. This time, He-Man will have to find his own answers. For now, they are in the true throne room of Eternia, in the place where Eternia was born. These are the magical fires that form the heart of Eternia. From here, all things were wrought: the power sword, the planet, the universe. All is rumored to have been wrought through these fires. These fires are the secret of Castle Grayskull, the secret that Skeletor had been searching for all these years. And then Zor vanishes, and so does the sorceress. Her last words to He-Man? "You know what to do here." But He-Man is as lost as ever. What does she mean he knows what to do? Why did she bring him here? What is he supposed to do? What do all these riddles mean? He screams for the sorceress to show herself. He demands answers, but she is long gone, and for once this forces He-Man to agree with Tila. Mages are kind of insufferable indeed. He then surveys his surroundings. A hammer sits in front of the fires, and He-Man is reminded of Duncan's blacksmithing skills. But then he is reminded of the sorceress's words: "I am not here to encourage you. I am here to see you prepared for what lies ahead." And so He-Man stops his ramblings, calms his mind, and then begins working on his sword. Meanwhile, back in Tila's cell, she is taunted and mocked by a prisoner who has been a slave to Despara for some time now. She ends up scarring Tila, or so it seems at first, for when the prisoner gets close to the bars, Tila grabs her by the hair and slams her against them. Despara steps in. She sends the prisoner away to be tortured even more, and then she confronts Tila once again. Teela calls her Adora this time, and Despara tells her to never call her that again. She then begins to boast about how Teela will be her slave, but Teela has prepared for this conversation. She steers the conversation in a different direction and gets them talking about Hordak. She tells Adora that Hordak isn't even human. He is some kind of vampire that is thousands of years old, a threat that has haunted Eternia and its kings for years. Despara claims that Lord Hordak has transcended humanity, but this is when Teela screams that Hordak was never human. He existed long before humanity existed. Despara thinks Teela is bluffing. She asks her to explain how Despara is his daughter if Hordak's not human, and this is when Teela holds her ground and tells Despara that she should answer that question herself. Teela has gone too far, unfortunately. Despara pulls out a knife and stabs her in the gut. She then walks away and orders her guards to prolong Teela's pain as much as possible. Back at Castle Grayskull, the assault continues. Mechanic, Man-at-Arms, and King Randor fight back valiantly, while deep underneath the ground, He-Man tirelessly works on hammering and bettering his sword. The assault is averted, but they all know that this was a simple test. Despara's forces are toying with them, keeping themselves entertained. And this is when King Randor is reminded of his son. Where is Adam? And hence we head below ground where He-Man is busy quenching his newly improved sword. His voice now echoes with every word. His indecision, his every doubt, seems like a thought of a past that never was. For now, when he summons the power of He-Man again, he is imbued with new abilities, a new power, and of course, new armor. Back at the camp, Despara paces around while wearing her menacing mask. What's got her so riled up? Teela's questions, of course. How old is Hordak? Is he really human? He is millions of years old after all. He has boasted about it to her many times. But does this mean he existed long before humanity did? Likely so, but what are the implications? Despara finds a quiet spot away from the camp, away from the battlefield, and then sits down against a tree. She removes her mask and stares at it, the mask that was bestowed upon her by Hordak. And this is when Zor shows up and lands on one of the branches of the tree. The Falcon says to her, "What do you believe, child? If he truly wished to keep you as his, Hordak should never have let you come home." He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2013, issue number 5, Once Upon a Time. Despara now kneels in front of Teela as she tells her the truth. She tells her that the font of the world is from which all magics flow. It's the essence of Eternia, and by extension, the essence of the universe. And this makes the font core to Eternia, which makes Eternia core to the universe. And so, 1,000 years ago, Lord Hordak pierced the veil that forbade those not of Eternia to stay away. He invaded to rule that font, and that would be the end of this tale had it not been for Lord Grayskull and the Forge. He forged a new sword in those fires and banished Hordak. Hordak was wounded, dead, but his essence remained. He found himself in Despondos, where he began to forge the world in his image. That dimension was corrupted by Hordak, corrupted by his hatred for the font, and that dimension became one with Hordak. The planet of Etheria, Hordak's vision, became the Dark Mirror, a parallel of Eternia, and its people became Hordak's followers. Despara thinks that this tale is enough to make Teela realize that resistance is futile. After all, she lies on the floor of her cell, bleeding out. But then Teela whispers and jokes that she had a bet with the Night Guard that Despara would be the first one falling to her knees, and this causes Despara to storm away. As she storms off, Despara's mind is once again riddled with doubts. Doubts that were sown by Teela's words, and those of the Falcon last night, of course. Teela is as good as dead. The only reason she lives is because Despara ordered her men to prolong her anguish, and so they keep healing her. But then she remembers the words of Zor from last night. If he truly wished to keep you as his, Hordak should never have let you come home. But Zor hadn't stopped there. It had then told Despara, tell Teela of Hordak and listen. For the first time, truly listen. Listen to what you are saying. Learn the truth by your own words. Little did she know that it was the sorceress speaking to her through Zor. But then again, Despara didn't even know that the bird was a magical construct. And then she does truly hear what she said. Hordak's physical form withered and died. If he truly died, then how can he be her father? Meanwhile, at Castle Grayskull, the newly armed He-Man has appeared and is cleaving through Despara's forces like a hot knife through butter. Man-at-Arms recognizes his new armor, and when Despara's forces his retreat, King Randor recognizes that his son has found the Forge of Grayskull. But this is when He-Man confronts his father. That is not all he has learned. The sorceress is alive. She spoke to him through Zor, and he now knows about his sister. King Randor doesn't know what he's talking about, and then He-Man reminds him how his father uttered his mother's name when he first saw Adora. King Randor confesses that the woman was the spitting image of his wife in her youth, and this is when He-Man says that it's time some of those burning questions were answered. But first, Teela needs to be rescued. We then catch up with Despara, who is now back in Etheria, confronting Shadow Weaver, her mother. She wants answers. She grabs Shadow Weaver by the throat and slams her into the wall, and this is when Shadow Weaver confesses that her suspicions have come too soon, and this is all because of Hordak's ego and folly. He shouldn't have sent Despara back to Eternia. Shadow Weaver begins to confirm what Despara suspects, but this only angers her further. She looks nothing like Shadow Weaver or Hordak, and this is when Shadow Weaver confronts her. Despara did call her mother, and she did give her the love of a mother. She then blames Hordak for bringing this upon them. His arrogance is what has lost her daughter. Despara now doubts them, and this is all his doing. And then she does the unthinkable. She tells her the truth. She is Adora, Princess of Eternia, but there is no throne waiting for her in Eternia, for that is meant for princes and kings. She then tells her how she was taken, and wouldn't you know it, Skeletor was at the center of this all. Keldor, as he was once known, was a lowly royal. He sold what little soul he had to gain power, and his soul was sold to Hordak. As Keldor, he was insignificant, a footnote in Eternia's history, but as Skeletor, he held a lot more power. He is Adora's uncle, and in exchange for his power, he was to bring the children of King Randor to Hordak. She and Adam were the price for his power. But this is when Adora asks a pertinent question. Why was she taken and not Adam? Why aren't they both Hordak's lackeys? And this is when Shadow Weaver reminds Adora of her imaginary friend Teela, and tells her that she was the only one taken because of Teela's mother, Teela Na, because she was the one who intervened and stopped Skeletor from taking the twins. She was smart, cunning, and in the service of Grayskull. She knew that the twins would be targeted because that's what she would have done herself. They fought briefly, and when Skeletor realized that he couldn't best the sorceress, he held up Adora in defense, threatening to kill her if the sorceress proceeded any further. But why did Hordak want the twins? Well, prophecy, of course. Both of them were prophesied to be destined for the power of Grayskull, power that Hordak wanted for himself, and that power Teela Na was forced to protect. And then in the end, she allowed Adora to be taken, for that would leave Adam to be the inheritor of the power of Grayskull, thus allowing Teela Na to fulfill her duties. And in the end, Grayskull isn't so benevolent. Maybe Adora was the sacrifice Grayskull needed to bestow its powers upon Adam. Adora is baffled. She can't believe what Shadow Weaver has just said, but she knows it's the truth. And this is when Hordak invades their conversation, and the mere presence of his hand sends them both flying away. Adora asks him about her past, and Hordak defiantly tells her that Shadow Weaver is right. She is Princess Adora, and he stole her from her parents, but that she should make no mistake. Her parents don't love her, because what kind of parents would let their daughter be kidnapped without acting on it? Shouldn't they have waged a war or at least attempted to find her? However, this is when Shadow Weaver defies Hordak. She won't let him manipulate and gaslight Adora anymore. She tells her daughter the truth. She tells Adora that the sorceress Teela Na erased King Randor and Queen Marlena's memories so that they wouldn't wage a war they couldn't win. And then she uses her powers to send Adora back to Eternia, while she stays back to face Hordak's wrath. And as Adora appears on Eternia, she is reminded of her cherished moments with Shadow Weaver. It was Shadow Weaver who would send Adora to meet Teela. She was the one who allowed her to have the life of a child as a kid. And now when Adora remembers that, she can't help but weep. She then rushes to Teela to save her and finds herself face to face with Shadow Weaver. Her mother tries to hug her, but then she gets turned to dust and dies. Hordak's voice then warns Adora that this is what will become of her if she dares defy him. Back in Castle Grayskull, He-Man is joined by Mechanic as he defies orders once again to go and save Teela. Their conversation reveals that they don't really have a plan and are hoping that things fall in their favor. Adora, meanwhile, is sitting beside Teela as she heals, but as soon as she wakes up, Teela punches Adora in the face. Jokingly, Adora hands her a knife and says that a blade would work better, and then tells her that Teela's mother gave her to Hordak. She then begins to tell her how she is King Randor's daughter, but this is when Teela interrupts her and asks if she healed her. Adora nods, and instantly Teela grabs the knife and stabs Adora because now she knows that she can be healed, and that this makes them both even. Adora coughs blood and says, "I think this marks the continuation of a beautiful friendship." He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, 2013, issue number 6, Blood Ties. He-Man and Mechanic have invaded the Evil Horde's camp, and there's no going back now. They are quickly overwhelmed by their sheer numbers, but He-Man's new powers ensure that they don't get captured or worse. Mechanic takes solace in the fact that this sudden invasion will keep the Horde from attacking Grayskull at least, and then they are joined by a new ally in the fight, Battle Cat. Battle Cat lunges and pushes back the closest foes and then bounds off into the camp to create yet another distraction. Adora meanwhile hands Teela armor from her Horde stash, and when asked what happens now, Adora defiantly states that she will fight, and she will fight for Teela because she is the only real thing from her childhood. Everything else has turned out to be a lie. Teela quickly steps back. This is too much responsibility all of a sudden, but they don't have time to talk about it because a huge blast sends both of them flying away. Hordak appears and chides Adora for being naive. If he had wanted, Adora would have been dead, and the only reason she is still alive is because Hordak is a forgiving god. Teela steps in and mocks Hordak for being too egotistical, but this is when Hordak gloats and explains that revealing the truth to Adora had always been a part of his plan. His true enemy was Grayskull, and Hordak still loathes him. So how do you destroy Grayskull after his death? You destroy his legacy, and thanks to his manipulation, Adora has already done that for him. The attacks on Castle Grayskull were merely a distraction. They were meant to keep the Masters of the Universe focused on one spot, while his forces took over the rest of the planet. And now that the people of Eternia have suffered, whenever they blame someone for their sorrows, it will be Adora, for she was the one who led the attack. He-Man now joins the two of them and learns the truth. Hordak mocks his new power, his new sword, and then shows his power to He-Man by destroying Castle Grayskull in an instant. The castle crumbles to dust, but He-Man stands his ground. The castle may have crumbled to dust, but the people of Eternia will never bend to his will. He has the power of Grayskull and the sword. He will banish Hordak from this realm once again. Hordak has heard enough. He orders his forces to attack, and while He-Man and Battle Cat get ready to fight, the others realize that they are doomed. He-Man orders Battle Cat to run, for they shall reunite sometime later. He then enacts his escape plan. A Talon fighter swoops in and they all grab onto a rope dangling from it and fly away. Everyone reconvenes at Point Dread, where King Randor and the remaining survivors of Eternos are holed up. His father is naturally quite dejected after what has happened, and He-Man does his best to assure him. He-Man then asks his father about the secrets of Castle Grayskull, and King Randor assures him that they will be safe. Skeletor had been trying to find them while they had their memories wiped. He wasn't able to find them, so neither will Hordak. He then asks about Adora, and He-Man tells him that she took off before they reached Point Dread. She needs some time to herself. She needs to find who she is in this new world. Meanwhile, Teela confronts her father about her mother, Teela Na, why he hadn't told her about the sorceress and how she was her mother. We then leave this conversation and head outside, where Fisto and Mechanic are discussing all that Teela is about to learn, and how she was betrothed to Adam when she was a child. Stratos then flies in and tells them that they should get ready to head out at the orders of the king, and the Masters of the Universe get ready to reclaim Eternia again, albeit one step at a time. Adora, meanwhile, mulls over her thoughts while staring at the destroyed castle and the evil Horde's camp in this part of Eternia, and this is when she senses Cringer approaching her. Adora hugs the cat, but then tells it that it is meant to be by Adam's side for now. He should go back to where he belongs. She will come and find them when the time is right. She then ominously says that she has some unfinished work to take care of, and then she begins walking towards the Horde camp in the valley below. Back in Etheria, Hordak mulls over his victory. It's done. Eternia has been captured, but then again, he doesn't feel victorious. Is it because he lost Adora? What indeed is the reason for this feeling of unease? He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2013, issue number 7, What Lies Within. King Randor now plans to take the fight to the enemy. He gives a rousing and motivational speech to his men, and tells them that they will be attacking the Horde's forces in the city of Sarnscepter, and so the attack begins at dawn. The spring rain helps them mask the first wave of attack, and an angry but valiant King Randor leads the charge. Samscepter used to be a beautiful market town, a hub of merchants, but now the evil Horde has turned it into a desolate piece of ground where they are are digging with huge excavators. That's all Randor knew before mounting the attack. The Horde wants something buried under the city of Sarnscepter, and that's all Randor needed to know in order to stop them. The Horde has taken enough from Eternia, and he won't let them have any more. We're then shown Grizzlor, who is leading the evil Horde in Sarnscepter under the orders of Hordak. He is told that Randor has managed to wipe out a significant amount of their forces in the first wave of the attack, and if this continues, they will lose the battle. Grizzlor then comes up with a strategy. Their backup forces will circle around and flank Randor's forces, which will surround them from two sides and prevent their escape. Grizzlor then unleashes monstroids, spider-like battle vehicles that begin to tip the tide of war. Upon noticing this, Randor orders his men to deploy their 5th unit, and a huge wave of men on horses joins the fight. Grizzlor realizes that their strategy of flanking them has been countered, and Randor continues his valiant effort after having picked up on the evil Horde's tactics. But then a blinding white light distracts everyone on the battlefield, and when it subsides, it's revealed that the Masters of the Universe are here to join the fight. Eternia's men are imbued with new vigor as He-Man begins slicing down men. Battlecat does his part, and so do the rest of the heroes. And this turns the tide of the battle instantly. Grizzlor instantly grabs his sword to join the fight. However, this is when Hordak appears and tells Grizzlor that this is no game. He-Man is more powerful than ever now, which is why Hordak orders him to use the Orbital Disruptor. Grizzlor tells Hordak that the Orbital Disruptor is a crude and unhonorable weapon, but Hordak doesn't care, and frankly, Grizzlor has no choice. The Orbital Disruptor is engaged and the evil Horde's forces are ordered to retreat. He-Man notices this and realizes this is no victory, but that something else is happening. He warns the others, but then the very next second a huge projectile is fired from space, which levels the entire battlefield. He-Man wakes a few hours later to the mysterious voice of a man hovering in the air on some kind of otherworldly vehicle. He warns He-Man that even with his newfound powers, he can't win a direct fight with Hordak and his forces. He needs to think strategically. The man introduces himself as Zodak, and he tells He-Man that he is an observer, unable to influence or intervene, but he can advise. And so he advises He-Man that soon he will be offered a new challenge, an indirect means of combating the evil Horde. He needs to take that chance carefully, or he will be tested, and without a doubt, he will be changed forever. Zodak then leaves, and moments later, He-Man is found by Stratos, who has been searching the battlefield for survivors. He-Man then reunites with his father, Teela, and Battlecat, and they decide to camp together for the night. Now that King Randor is alone with his thoughts, he realizes how he has failed his people, and all of Eternia. The planet is under enemy control, Eternos has been sacked, Grayskull has been captured, and his allies and subjects are scattered, lost, or worse, dead. Teela and He-Man try to console him, try to give him hope, but the king knows that the only way to fix this is a massive and risky undertaking. Their most singularly important loss happened at the start of this turmoil, when Skeletor killed the sorceress. She was Eternia's most powerful mage, and her death left them crippled. King Randor decides that it's now time to defy the laws of creation and bring her back to life. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2013, issue number 8, underneath. And so, having heard King Randor's appeal and realizing how bad he feels, our heroes are now on the journey to Mount Zor, where the goddess of creation supposedly resides. Unfortunately, on their way there, they are ambushed and attacked by the evil Horde's outriders. He-Man, Teela, King Randor, Battlecat, and Stratos fight back, for this is what remains of the Masters of the Universe, and they fight valiantly, but there's only so much you can do against an army that outnumbers you by the thousands. Just when it seems that they will be able to carve an opening to make their escape, Stratos swoops in and tells them that more outriders are headed this way. This means they're screwed. But fortunately, all is not lost, because this is when Mossman comes to their aid. He uses the ancient trees and plant life of Eternia to capture and restrain the evil Horde's forces, and then leads our heroes into a remote part of the forest where the ancient trees have agreed to give them some breathing space from the outside world, at least for an hour or two. Mossman learns that this is all that's left of Eternia's saviors, and he can't help but feel that their future is bleak. The others end up revealing to Mossman that they're headed for Mount Zor, and King Randor tries to stop them. Mossman notices this and questions Randor's intentions, only to learn that he is going there to make a desperate plea to Zor, the true goddess of Eternia, for whom the sorceress acted as an oracle. Mossman knows about her. He is older than any tree or being on Eternia. He knows Zor is the star seed, Seed, her fire in which their universe was formed. Mossman goes on to reveal that she is older than all. She has other names, lizard names, that were given to her even before the mammals were created. Randor tries to ramble about Zor more, but Mossman interrupts him and questions his intentions again. And this is when Randor tells him that he intends to petition her to bring back the sorceress. Mossman's eyes widen with horror, for this is madness. He advises Randor against this venture. Mossman is the possessor of the world's ancient lore, and what Randor is attempting to do risks undoing the fundamental bonds of the universe. This is when the others join in and tell Randor that they feel the same way, and he makes his last appeal to them. He requests that they accompany him on the journey to Mount Zor at least. And so they oblige their king. They reach Mount Zor, and Randor once again begs them to accompany him to the temple at the top at least. There he shows them the inscriptions on the wall, ancient inscriptions that describe Zor as the Starseed, the first light. She supposedly abides in the heart of Subternia, the underworld, and she has supposedly existed for eternity. Before the rise of man, the first ones worshipped her, and this is when Mossman tells them that they called her Serpos. The first ones were snake men, their kind long gone and withered to dust. This is why King Randor believes that Zor can recreate the sorceress. Tila and the others think the king is losing his mind, but this is when she notices that He-Man seems interested in his ramblings. When Mossman tries to reason with King Randor, the king shows him more inscriptions on the wall. Inscriptions that talk about a prophecy. It describes the tale of a mighty warrior who would traverse Subternia to heal the surface world. This prophecy was written by the ancient Council of Elders, and the prophecy begins with the death of the sorceress, a fact that has already come true. The king thinks that this prophecy is about Adam. His sword was forged by Grayskull in the fires of the Starseed. Only Adam has the power to see this endeavor through. And this is when He-Man joins the dots and tells them about his meeting with Zodak and what the Observer told him. A new challenge, an indirect means of combating the enemy, and that he should look within. Maybe Zodak was being literal and talking about Subternia. Tila thinks He-Man is losing it too, but this revelation seems to convince Mossman. The king leads them to the gates of Subternia, and this is when Stratos tells them about the legend that Subternia is made of 6 rings. Mossman tells everyone that the legend is true and the 6 rings are of dreams, earth, sky, war, death, and eternity. All must be traversed to reach the goddess herself. And so Adam uses the power sword and the gates to Subternia begin to open. They all walk through and encounter the first Ring of Dreams, a realm which unfortunately is filled with nightmares. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2013, issue number 9, Nightmare. The battle against nightmares has begun. King Randor rallies the warriors and orders them to fight valiantly, and they all oblige. But this battle seems unwinnable. All kinds of nightmares swarm and attack them from all sides. Dragons, huge worms, monsters of every kind imaginable, and this is when, against his will, Stratos is forced to confess that maybe it's time they retreat. There's no shame in doing so, and Mossman agrees with him. Unfortunately, when they turn around, they find that the doorway has been sealed. Stratos speculates that maybe He-Man can open it up using his power sword, but this is when King Randor interrupts their conversation and tells them that there's no going back. They will not retreat. The only way to go now is forward. Their passing through the first gate was them pledging their oath to cross all 6 to find the goddess Zor at the center of Subternia. She is the life force of Eternia. She can deliver them from evil. Only she can save Eternia now. He-Man agrees with him, but the presence of all these nightmares puzzles them. Shouldn't there be fewer? Isn't this the Ring of Dreams and not of nightmares? And this is when King Randor explains to them that the entire underworld, Subternia, is a mirror of the overworld. It is a mirror to Eternia, and now that Eternia has been run over by the evil horde, the surface is twisted and polluted by the horrors of the horde. And because of this, the Ring of Dreams has accordingly become a place of nightmares and dark terrors. And so our warriors fight, and make no mistake, these are the best of the best on Eternia. Tila is the captain of the Royal Guard, daughter of the sorceress, and man-at-arms, and He-Man's closest ally. And then there's Stratos, king of Avion. His wings are razor sharp, and they slice through his enemies like a hot knife through butter. Then there's Mossman, the ancient entity as old as Eternia, whose might is paralleled by his command over all plant life. Then there's King Randor, the exiled and wounded leader of Eternia, a wounded lion who now fights with the might of 10 warriors. Then of course there's Battle Cat and He-Man, a duo that has taken down the biggest enemies of Eternia in the past. Our warriors wage war against the nightmares in the Ring of Dreams for an entire day and night, but there was simply no stopping them. And then He-Man heard a loud rumble and he warned the others that something big was coming. And wouldn't you know it, he's right. The very next second, a huge worm appears with at least a dozen heads. Our warriors stare at it in horror, and then with one swift move, the worm swoops down and swallows Teela, Mossman, and Stratos in an instant. An enraged and furious He-Man leaps at the worm as King Randor struggles to accept the fact that he has just lost 3 allies. He-Man slices the worm into 2 and rips open its abdomen, but unfortunately his friends are nowhere to be found. King Randor regroups. He has Battlecat flank his side as he reminds his son that there's no time for mourning. They need to continue the fight. He-Man assumes that Teela has died, and now imbued with the anger of 1,000 men, He-Man holds his sword above his head and jumps into battle once again. We then catch up with the other Masters of the Universe because, surprisingly, the 3 of them are not dead. At least, not yet. Teela and Stratos wake from their daze in an instant, only to realize that they're in some kind of desert, desolate, barren, and completely lifeless. This is when they notice Mossman, who has significantly changed, powerless, gaunt, and no longer green. He informs them that the worm displaced them. It brought them here to the Ring of Earth. Teela realizes that Mossman is dying, and she tells him to steady himself, but Mossman knows he doesn't have much time, even though he'd like to. He informs them that just like the Ring of Dreams, this Ring of Earth represents what is happening to Eternia above. The evil horde is laying waste to the nature of Eternia, which is why the Ring of Earth is lifeless. There is no life here, no trees or plants, no biosphere. This place is dead, which is why Mossman withers with each passing second. Teela assures him that she and Stratos will protect him, but Mossman tells them to protect themselves first, for the Rockmen approach, and they are about to attack. Back in the Ring of Dreams, He-Man and King Randor fight with new vigor. They both now fight as father and son. Back in the Ring of Earth, instead of fighting the Rockmen, Teela and Stratos have fled and have carried Mossman to safety. They lay him down to give him some time to rest, but this is when Mossman tells them that his life is slipping away, and though having hope in this moment is the right thing to do, Mossman still needs to prepare for the worst, and in case he dies, he wants to get something off his chest before that happens. He tells Teela that Zor is eternal and powerful, but she is also unforgiving. Her light is unforgiving. Before mankind arose on Eternia, there were the Snake Men, the first ones. They worshipped Zor as Serpos, but now the Snake Men are gone. They have perished, and Zor did not answer their prayers. She let them perish, as all things need to perish in the natural order. Mossman fears that the same will happen to them, that Randor is mistaken, that Zor won't be any more understanding towards mankind than she was towards the Snake Men. Teela appreciates his honesty, but she has more pertinent and more burning questions. The Rings of Earth and Dreams were supposed to be the easy ones to cross through, but if both of them are proving to be this difficult, then how are they supposed to survive the Rings of War and Death? Before Mossman can answer her, Stratos quickly interrupts her and tells her that they need to leave, for the Rockmen have caught up to them. Meanwhile, back in the Ring of Dreams, Randor and He-Man have fought their way through the nightmares and have finally reached the door to the next ring. He-Man uses the power sword to open the gate, but nothing happens. He then joins the fight, and this is when Randor speculates that maybe they spent too much time in the Ring of Dreams. They have maybe lingered too long, and maybe this has now become their own personal nightmare. A nightmare in which they are trapped with monsters and a gate that wouldn't open. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2013, issue number 10, Enemy Within. The unwinnable battle in the Ring of Dreams continues. The nightmares have grown in size, and Randor and He-Man are backed up against the gate that leads forward. Randor is losing his grip on reality. He is growing desperate, and He-Man is forced to remind him that they need to be strategic in this battle. They need to have their backs against each other. He tells his father that he should follow the lead of Battlecat, and King Randor heeds his son's advice in this moment. But suddenly, huge explosions from the air begin to destroy the nightmares around them. What is this? Who comes to their aid in this desolate realm of Subternia? They cannot see their helpers. The fog is too dense, but then a huge airship comes into view, and aboard it are their friends Teela, Mossman, and Stratos. Stratos is helming the airship while Teela and Mossman use the onboard cannons to rain fire on the nightmares below. Mossman is back to himself. He is no longer dying, and it's all thanks to Teela and Stratos, who managed to save him. We also learn that Stratos is having the time of his life flying this airship. It's unlike anything he has ever felt before in his life. Stratos then halts the airship and Teela then drops down ropes to rescue He-Man and Randor. He-Man quickly grabs the rope and climbs up, and Randor follows his lead. Once they have been saved, He-Man quickly tells Teela that they need to grab Battle Cat as well, and Teela has Stratos lower the ship, and then she urges Battle Cat to leap with all its might. It does as it is told and manages to grab onto the railings, and then Teela and He-Man grab Battle Cat and haul it on board. Stratos then turns the ship around with haste, and soon they find themselves in clearer skies. Naturally, He-Man and King Randor have tons of questions, and seeing that the two of them have been through a lot, Mossman decides to give them straight answers. After the worms swallowed them, they were spat out in the Ring of Earth. Stratos used his affinity for the sky to guide them out. They tell them that the Ring of Earth is perilous and desolate, and just like the Ring of Dreams, it is mirroring what is happening on Eternia. There's no life force there, just rock men waging incessant war against each other and anything that dares to wade in it. If it hadn't been for Stratos, he would have died. Stratos then informs them that this is the Ring of Sky, and it's unique in its nature because it spans across all the other circles, which means that they can cut through the other circles and head straight towards the Ring of Eternity, where the goddess Zor resides. The Ring of Sky is littered with all kinds of airships, and that is where Stratos found this vessel. And suddenly they pass through the cloud cover, and He-Man and King Randor can now look at the Ring of Sky in all its glory. Millions of stars adorn the night sky, and all manners of airships, satellites, space stations, and other things are strewn about. It is filled with the things that the winds of fate have washed up here, flotsam, jetsam, all the things blown here from the endless skies of the endless worlds. Stratos assures them that they will bypass the rings of death and war easily, and this is when King Randor's face turns dark. Something about this plan seems to perturb him, but King Randor doesn't say anything, at least not in this moment. They travel for hours, and then they find themselves face to face with huge storms brewing in the distance. Stratos reassures everyone that he will circle the airship around the storm to prevent anything untoward from happening. Then, after some time, the air begins to get cold and an unsettling chill takes over everyone's bodies. They speculate that this is happening because they are passing over the Ring of Death, and this is when Randor approaches Stratos and relieves him of his duties. Stratos has been diligently piloting the ship for hours now. He likely needs to rest. Stratos lets go of the helm and King Randor takes over, but this is when Adam and Teela notice that they have begun heading towards the storm that they were trying to avoid. They warn Randor, but instead of turning away from it, Randor turns the airship towards the storm. Stratos notices this. He warns his king, but unfortunately he doesn't intervene. And then a huge bolt of lightning strikes the airship. The top of it ruptures and they rapidly begin plummeting towards the ground. Everyone braces for impact, and thankfully everyone manages to survive the crash. Mossman informs them that they have unfortunately crash landed in the Ring of Death, but He-Man has bigger concerns. His father is nowhere to be found. But then Mossman points to the figures emerging from the mist. This shouldn't be possible. These people are supposed to be dead, but this is the Ring of Death, so anything is possible here. And then the figures emerge and everyone finds themselves face to face with the ancient Snake Men. He-Man and Stratos continue to search for Randor, but this is when Randor's voice startles them, and he says, "There is no Randor. There has not been a Randor for a long time now. There is only what lies within." And then King Randor reveals himself, and indeed, he is no longer Randor. He has 4 arms now, and instead of hands, he has snakes for limbs. His eyes are glowing red, and King Randor has 4 huge fangs. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2013, issue number 11, The King Before Man. He-Man is baffled by this revelation. Has his father been transformed? What kind of evil has taken over King Randor? And this is when the entity tells He-Man that his name is Hiss, and Mossman recognizes this name. This entity is supposedly King Hiss, ruler of the Snake Men and the first king of all Eternia. Enraged, He-Man charges at King Hiss with his sword raised in the air. He calls King Hiss an usurper, but Hiss quickly punches him in the face and then uses his snake limbs to entangle He-Man. King Hiss calls men the true usurpers, the ones who overthrew the Snake Men and took Eternia from them. He then explains to He-Man that he has been waiting millions of years for this opportunity. You see, King Hiss knelt to one and only one thing in his life, Serpos, the mother goddess at the heart of Eternia, the heart of the universe. King Hiss wanted to share that power. He wanted to be as great as Serpos, maybe even greater. And so he took on the forbidden journey to the core of Eternia. He wanted to take Serpos's power for himself. This is when he slams He-Man into the ground, which leaves him motionless. Hiss goes on to explain that he stared upon the true face of the goddess, and just like He-Man underestimated him, he had underestimated the goddess. No mere mortal could survive such a feat. No mere mortal could wield such a power. The universe crushed him, and the resulting ice age destroyed his people. King Hiss was the only one who survived, and he has spent ages scheming to free Eternia from men and return his race to its former glory. Teela tries to jump in to save He-Man, but that is when she, Mossman, and Stratos are attacked by Hiss's resurrected Snake Men. The three of them fight back, but the Snake Men keep coming. More and more are being resurrected with each passing second, and this is when they speculate that some arcane power is helping them come back from the dead. And this is when King Hiss mocks Stratos for his speculation, and tells him that only the power of the Starseed could bring back his men from the dead, and he now possesses the key to that power. This is when He-Man sucker punches him, and King Hiss restrains him with his snakes instantly. He-Man struggles and angrily screams for Hiss to return King Randor to him, but this is when Hiss mocks him again and tells him that his father is dead, has been dead for a long time. But how long has Hiss occupied King Randor's flesh? Did he take over in Sarnscepter, or was he Randor long before Adam was born? An enraged He-Man then breaks away, slashes out at King Hiss, and then calls him a madman. In return, King Hiss gloats that he has worn many faces over eons, and then leaps at He-Man, sheds his father's skin, and reveals his true form. He-Man is taken aback, and this is when King Hiss removes his prized weapon, his staff, to subdue He-Man. He then chucks He-Man away, and as he recovers, He-Man accepts his father's death, and asks King Hiss what this key to the power of the Starseed is that he keeps rambling about. And this is when King Hiss reveals that Adam himself is the key to the power of the Starseed. Grayskull forged the power sword in the fires of the Starseed. That power transformed into Adam when he became He-Man, and this means that part of the Starseed is within him, which makes him the key to unlocking its true potential. His mere presence in the Ring of Death gave King Hiss enough life energy to raise some of his Snake Men from death. It was never Randor who petitioned to bring the sorceress back. It was King Hiss all along. It was his scheme so that he could bring He-Man into the underworld. He-Man fights back, tries to hit King Hiss, but the former ruler of Eternia blocks his blow and then sends him flying away with a huge hit. He then tells him that his Snake Men will take care of his friends, and this distracts He-Man, which King Hiss uses to his advantage, to knock him out with his poison. King Hiss then orders his Snake Men to retreat. He has them pick his body up, and they then begin walking towards the last gate of Subternia, the one that leads to the Ring of Eternity, where the power of the Starseed supposedly resides. Teela, Stratos, and Mossman discuss their next step. Stratos suggests that maybe they can use the Ring of Death to their advantage in this battle, and Teela asks Mossman if the king is really dead. He confirms her morbid suspicions, and Teela breaks down. King Hiss and his Snake Men, meanwhile, have reached the final door, and the mere presence of Adam's body in its vicinity causes the door to open. On the other side is a lone bridge surrounded by every cosmic body imaginable, and the bridge leads to a huge fiery star. King Hiss rejoices and tells his men that they will use He-Man's body as a conduit to receive the power of eternity. Once they have reached the huge platform at the end of the bridge, King Hiss orders his men to raise He-Man's body and to get ready to chuck it into the Starseed's fire. Teela and the rest meanwhile discuss what they can do, and upon realizing that they don't have many choices, Teela decides that she'd rather fight for eternity than twiddle her thumbs while the Snake Men sacrifice He-Man. She grabs her sword and lunges at King Hiss's forces. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2013, Issue 12, Eternia Anew. Adam suddenly wakes up and comes to consciousness and finds himself aloft on the shoulders of humanoids who should long be dead. The Snake Men carry him to his demise, carry him to the Starseed. Yet as soon as he wakes up, three horrible thoughts come to mind. His first waking thought is that King Randor is dead, his father is dead, and he has been dead for God knows how long. His second waking thought is that King Randor was replaced by King Hiss, and well, the third thought that follows is nothing but utter despair. Adam screams as the thought of all being lost haunts him over and over again. The Snake Men chant around him, and King Hiss defiantly orders them to throw Adam into the power of the Starseed, into the fires that created their universe. With his might, He-Man breaks free and puts up one last fight. He shoves the Snake Men around him away and then begins punching wildly, but Hiss isn't bothered. He knows this is He-Man's one last desperate attempt to fight his fate, to fight whatever Hiss has planned for him. He He-Man, however, continues punching, and when he spots the power sword in the hands of the Snake Man, he redoubles his efforts. But this is when Hiss steps in. Seeing as how Adam was able to reach the power sword, Hiss blasts him with his mystical powers, using his staff, and this incapacitates him. He falls to the ground with severe burns on his back, and this is when he faintly hears Teela's voice calling out to him. Teela tells him to hold on, as she desperately fights back the waves of Snake Men attacking her, and Moss Man and Stratos. Moss Man didn't want to join the fight. He knew this was a lost cause, but both Teela and Stratos had convinced him that they have no other choice. They can't use the Ring of Death to their advantage anymore, and they don't have time to come up with a new plan. They have to fight, brute force their way through this. And this is when the Snake Men pick up an ailing He-Man once again and begin carrying him towards the fires of the Starseed. Teela screams as she realizes that they are about to throw him in, and this is when Moss Man tells her that this is what he was afraid of. Throwing Adam into the fires of the Starseed will close the Ring of Eternity, which will grant Hiss access to the power that he has been seeking for eons. And this is when Moss Man gets ambushed and one of the Snake Men manages to slice off his right arm. Teela reels back in horror, but Moss Man assures her that he can heal himself and grow his arm back. And this is when Stratos begins to wonder about the goddess Zor, the consciousness of the Starseed, and Teela offers a bleak thought to all of them. Maybe the goddess isn't real. Maybe the Starseed has no consciousness. Maybe He-Man is their only chance to save Eternia. And if that's the case, it's time to make their last stand. She asks Stratos to carry her to He-Man, and Stratos does as he's told. And so, before the Snake Men can toss He-Man into the Starseed, Teela attacks Hiss from the air, which momentarily surprises him. But King Hiss is no pushover. He simply thwacks Teela away, which sends her flying into the Starseed, even before He-Man. Moss Man, Stratos, and Battlecat scream in horror at the loss of Teela, and they watch in real time as her petite frame gets consumed by the fires of the Starseed that created their node universe. Inside the seed, however, Teela finds herself face to face with Teela Na, the sorceress of Eternia, the all-powerful mage, her mother. The sorceress reassures Teela that she is safe. She is at the center of the Starseed at the heart of Zor. But this is too much for Teela. She breaks down. Why did the sorceress never tell her, never confront her, never try to be a mother to her? And her mother gives her the same reason that her father Duncan gave her. Her responsibilities as the sorceress were too much. She could never have been a mother to Teela, so it was a better choice to stay out of her life. But Teela Na reassures her daughter that she never stopped watching over her. She watched as her daughter grew into a fierce warrior, the leader of the Royal Guard. She stood watch as she became the defender of Eternia. And then Teela Na tells her daughter that now it's time to become even more. The sorceress then explains to Teela that King Hiss is wrong. The Starseed is much more than any of them can understand. It is not indifferent like Moss Man told her. It does not lack consciousness. The Starseed, the power of the Mother Goddess, is beyond comprehension for every being in the universe, and she has a plan for all of them. Her role as the sorceress was to be the voice of the Mother Goddess. She was her oracle. She was the face of the caring universe. Each race in the world sees the goddess in their own image and thus gets their own sorceress accordingly. And so she was Eternia's sorceress, Mage of Grayskull, the Oracle of Zor. But unfortunately, that era is coming to an end. Eternia needs a new sorceress, a new voice, and a new face that can lead them and save them from the evil horde. And Teela is the perfect choice for that. So is Teela ready? Is she ready for the challenge? Is she ready to pay the price required to save Eternia? And then King Hiss is blasted away by a huge explosion emanating from the Starseed. Adam scrambles, grabs his power sword, and points it at Hiss. He can feel the tide turning. He can sense that Eternia has been imbued with new power, and so he gives Hiss one last opportunity to confess to his crimes and accept his fate. But then He-Man hears Teela's voice, and she tells him that there's no need for violence anymore. She emerges from the star and declares herself the new sorceress of Eternia, the sorceress of Serpos. And this means she is the one true goddess of the Snake Men, the one whom they have sought for in eternity. She snatches Hiss's staff away from him and he screams in anger. He tells her that he will not bow to her and lunges at her, but this is when He-Man jumps him and uppercuts him. This sends Hiss flying away. He falls off the bridge to eternity and gets lost in the black void of creation. He-Man is heartbroken. His Teela, the one he knew since he was a child, is gone. Moss Man Mossman is indifferent, a little piqued but mostly indifferent, while Stratos accepts her wholeheartedly. Eternia has a new sorceress. Their planet has been saved. The Snake Men bow down to her, and this only exacerbates the gap Adam has been feeling since her transformation. Tila too can see how he feels on his face, and she has no choice but to tell him, "I am what I have become, Adam. We may yet win this war. First, let's leave Subternia." And then with a blinding flash of light, they all vanish and suddenly appear on Snake Mountain, which is on the dark hemisphere of Eternia. Tila then declares that the Snake Men, this resurrected army, will fight for their cause. They will fight against the evil horde, and Adam will lead them. But before that happens, Eternia needs a new king. And so Tila transforms Adam, gives him new armor and a crown, and declares him the new king of Eternia. Grayskull knew this day would come, and so did Zor. Mossman and Stratos kneel before their new king, but all of this is happening too fast for Adam. He has simply been going through the motions. Once everyone is gone, Adam storms off, and Stratos notices his displeasure. He confronts his friend, tries to console his new king, and Adam simply removes his crown and tells Stratos that he will not wear the crown until the evil horde has been defeated. Zodak was right. They have new might now, but it has come at a great cost. He has lost his father. He has lost Tila. Eternia can still be saved, but the price paid is too great for Adam to handle. He hugs Stratos, and we then head to a remote part of Eternia to catch up with Adora, who now travels the wildlands in a cloak to hide her identity. She then encounters a shriveled up old woman who asks for some water, and Adora happily obliges. Upon realizing that the woman has fallen on hard times, Adora offers her the entire flask of water, and the woman thanks her profusely. As Adora walks away, the woman wishes her well, but this is when her eyes turn red. A thin tongue slips out of her teeth, and we learn that King Hiss is still alive, and that Adora seems to be the target of his future schemes. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2013, issue number 13, The Darkest Night of Eternia. It was 1,000 years ago that King Grayskull had stared into the eyes of monstrous Hordak, and then plunged his newly forged power sword into his chest. The powers of eternity had then opened a portal in the sky, which had transported Hordak and his entire army to Etheria, which began his banishment. After this victory, all of Eternia gathered at Castle Grayskull, and the celebrations had been declared to go on for the next month without stopping. That night, everyone drank, and as Grayskull sat on his throne, we were introduced to a new race of Eternia, one that was at peace with Grayskull and his regime. These were the Gars, and their wisest was the sage Adi, one of the trusted advisors of Grayskull. He raised a toast to the king, and this is when we are introduced to Grayskull's handmaiden, Saren. Grayskull loved her like a daughter, and she was the most loyal to him. Then there was his wife and queen, Vina, the high priestess of Zor and the current oracle of the goddess. Beside her was a young Tila Na, and those celebrations were at their peak. Vina was troubled by the prophecy she was just given by the goddess. She didn't want to spoil her husband's night with the prophecy, but something told her that she had no choice. But this wasn't the only trouble brewing in Castle Grayskull that night. Sage Adi had his own plans for a coup, plans he was enacting alongside a Gar assassin named Gorto. He met up with Gorto in secret and then told him that the temple bell would be the signal to begin their attack. Then the queen raised a toast to her beloved, and after having put the crowd at ease, she pulled Grayskull aside to tell him of the prophecy. When they were in private, Vina told Grayskull that the prophecy is a warning of the future, a future where war across Eternia will be waged by two of his own blood. One would try and bring about the destruction of the realm, while the other would try to stop him. They are both pained by this revelation, but because they require more information, Grayskull implores Vina to beseech the goddess once again for more information. Little do they know that Adi, the Gar sage, has heard this conversation, and he is going to manipulate it to his own advantage. And so he went and found Saren, who already knew about his plans and was in tears. Adi wanted Saren to be the one who slit Grayskull's throat. She was the only one who could get close enough to him, but when Saren refused at the cost of betraying her race, Adi told her about the prophecy. Only in this version, he painted both of Grayskull's offspring as bringing about Eternia's demise. Grayskull was supposedly being corrupted by the power sword, and only Saren had the power to stop this madness. When Saren refuses again, Adi goes a step further. He tells Saren that she is not barren. She will have a child in the future. The queen saw that. Zor showed it to her. Yet the king and queen chose to keep this information from her. It will be her son who becomes the savior of Eternia when the two heirs of Grayskull wage war across the land. And this is enough to convince Saren. She takes the cursed and poisoned blade from Adi and goes on her way to end Grayskull's life. Now that everything is in place, Adi goes to the temple and rings the bell, which signals Gorto and his forces to begin the attack. On any other night, the people of Grayskull would have been quick on their feet, but tonight they were resting, reveling in the victory of having defeated Hordak. And so, when Gorto and his men attacked, they were defenseless. Everything was sacked. Everyone was killed, captured, and everything was burned. The Queen's chambers were rushed by Adi himself. She was captured and killed, and though Tila Na tried to fight back, she was ordered to run away by Vina to remember what happened here today. And as a drunk Grayskull was handed a drink by Saren again, he was too slow to notice the warm glow slowly rising in the window. By the time he did, it was already too late. Saren's drink had paralyzed him, and he was unable to move or wield his power sword. Saren then pulled out the cursed knife, bade Grayskull not to look at her, and then she slit his throat and killed the king. That night, 1,000 years ago, was Eternia's darkest night, for Grayskull had fallen, and Eternia's fate had been sealed. Zor's warnings had fallen on deaf ears, for there was no one left to hear them. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2013, issue number 14, Ancient Dreams. We now begin our story 1,000 years ago once again, sometime after the coup, at the island of Anwat Gar, home to the Gar people. Saren runs through the forest covered in blood, panting and crying while an unseen entity chases her. She runs because all the devils and demons of Eternia chase her. All that is monstrous, all that is fearsome, all that is horrible chases her. Her name is cursed, for her blood is cursed, because she is the most treacherous of all, the murderer of King Grayskull. Saren keeps telling herself over and over again that the demons are fake, that the devils that chase her are only there in her head. Saren keeps telling herself that over and over again, but then again, if that's true, then whose blood soaks her? If these demons and devils are the manifestations of her guilt, then what is it that she can see in the shadows? Saren screams no at the top of her lungs as a mysterious entity made out of black with red eyes emerges from the shadows behind her. And with the same scream, Adora awakens in the mountains of Thalu 1,000 years later. She lives here. It's easy to lie low here. No one ventures this far out into the wilderness. Not even the evil horde. She likes the loneliness. It means peace to her, and when her loneliness is disturbed, she packs up and moves on at a moment's notice. She has been able to outrun everything but her ancient dreams that haunt her nights. She is breaking camp today, and before she packs everything up, she takes a look at her precious ancient map once again. The map shows the way to Anwat Gar, the Forbidden Land, and she doesn't know what awaits her there, redemption or doom. But Adora knows that she needs to follow her heart to find out her truth. Her thoughts get the better of her. She ends up cursing her former self, Despara, but then she realizes someone is watching her, and she instantly grabs her sword and turns around only to be face to face with her brother, He-Man. He-Man and Battle Cat have traveled far and wide to reach her, and Adora knows that if it hadn't been for her lovable cat, Adam wouldn't have been able to find her. Adora tells him that despite his form, she still prefers to call him Adam, and He-Man doesn't mind. Adora spends a good minute cuddling Battle Cat and then reminds Adam that she wanted to be left alone. Adam tells her that he respects her privacy, but he brings grave news. The king, their father, is dead. At first, Adora tries to pretend that his death doesn't affect her. She barely knew him after all. But then the sorrow breaks through, and with a saddened expression, she asks how their father died. Adam tells her that it's a long and convoluted tale, but that he was slain by an ancient evil. He then tells her that he has taken an oath not to wear the crown until Eternia is free from the horrors of the evil horde. He then notices that she is breaking camp, and Adam decides to walk with her. He then tells her about their good fortunes, how they have a new fortress in the Dark Hemisphere, and how they have a new army of snake men. He then tells her that she needs to realize that now that their father is dead and their mother is off-world, the duty to lead Eternia falls on his shoulders and hers. But Adora politely declines. She needs to answer for her actions, face the consequences, face the wrath for her actions as Despara. It's why she travels alone, to face her own truth and the consequences of her own action. Adam tries to calm her. She was manipulated by Hordak, brainwashed, and though the people of Eternia won't forgive her because of that, he will. Their father did, and she should forgive herself too. This is when Adora angrily brings up the prophecy, how the sorceress was right to send her off to Hordak to prevent the prophecy from coming true, and Adam once again calms her down. He understands how she must feel, abandoned and unloved, sent away from her family, which is why he has brought her a gift, their mother's pendant with her photo in it. It's the only thing Adam has from their mother, and he wants Adora to have it. Adora begins to weep, and Adam grabs her shoulder and reminds her that she is his twin, his sister, and though she might feel alone, she is the only thing he has left after the death of their father. For a moment it seems Adora might give in, but then her expression changes. She pulls herself away from Adam and storms off. Adam then calls out to her and tells her to stop because they know where she is going, where she is headed. He knows that she is going to Anwat Gar, but contrary contrary to what she might think, he isn't here to stop her. He is here to accompany her, to keep her safe. The sorceress believed that Adora would find her answers in Anwat Gar. Adora tries to stop him from coming, but then he shows her a message from the sorceress and reveals that it's none other than Tila. Tila appeals to Adora as a friend. She once told her that Tila was the only real thing she could trust in her life, and so Tila calls upon that trust and begs her to let Adam accompany her on this journey. She then tells Adora that she has also sent a gift for her, and this is when Adam opens the box he holds and reveals the ancient blade. Little do either of them know that this is the same blade that Saren used to slit Grayskull's throat. Adora has accepted Adam as her companion, but she warns him that she is battling demons. But this is when Adam tells her that family makes battling demons a lot easier. And so they continue with their journey, and we catch up with them sometime later when they're defeating the third Horde war party that they have encountered on their travels. This is when 3 flying vessels from the Horde cross the sky above, and Adam finally tells Adora that maybe they should travel a different way. Maybe they should go by sea, and thus a plan is hatched. They will head to Althara Port, grab a boat, and then flee. The port is controlled by the Horde too, and this is when Adam jokes that this journey was never going to be easy. And so they reach Althara Port, only to learn that a huge machine from Hordak's Fright Zone is occupying it. And this isn't the only one. In the background, we can see many more such machines jutting out of the Eternian landscape. Adora and Adam watch from the shadows as the Eternian people are enslaved and shipped off to God knows where. But then, as the two of them hatch a plan, we learn that someone has spotted them, and the two of them have been identified. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2013, issue number 15, Fright Zone. And so the plan begins, and Adora and Adam start off by taking down the 2 guards protecting the entrance. And this is when Adora exclaims that the Fright Zone is here, and Adam can't help but ask for an explanation. Hordak is doing to Eternia what he did to Etheria. He is consuming it. Adam asks more questions, and Adora tells him that Hordak conquers worlds by feeding off the fear of their inhabitants. Their fear allows the seed of his Fright Zone to take root. It then spreads through the world like cancer, like a cancer of shadow and darkness. It corrupts the very land itself, and this is when Adam and Adora stumble upon the denizens of Althara Port. Not only the denizens, but also all the animals from the woods. They're all kept in specialized cages, and Adam can feel the fear radiating off them. Adam wants to free everyone at once, and so does Adora as she caresses a nearby Pegasus unicorn. But then she reminds him that doing so will blow their cover, and Tila was very clear when she told them that their priority is to be at Anwat Gar. Adam confesses that this is a damn hard thing to do, but when Adora spots the Horde soldiers rushing in, she quickly pushes Adam aside and forces him to hide. They manage to hide along with Battlecat in the nick of time, and while hiding, Adam asks Adora what Hordak does with the prisoner, and Adora refuses to answer. Adam insists, and Adora tells him that the Horde places the prisoners in the Fright Zone chambers, and then Hordak feeds on their souls. He consumes them, which makes him more powerful. Adam remarks that Adora sounds in awe of Hordak, and Adora can't help but justify herself. She tells Adam that Hordak is kind of inevitable, like a god. Some say he is as old as creation, and if that's the case, then he is a force of nature, an agent of entropy, the god of endings, because all things must come to an end. Hordak's role is an ugly one, but he has a role to play in the chaos of the cosmos nonetheless. But Adam has heard enough. He has learned enough. If Hordak is a god, then it's time for Adam to be one too. He will not let Eternians die in vain just so they can feed Hordak's power and Fright Zone. He-Man can make a difference, and so Adam tells Adora to get ready to free the prisoners, and then holds up his sword and transforms into He-Man. This time, the power of eternity answers his call, and Adora watches in astonishment as lightning rains down from the sky and destroys everything, every piece of technology belonging to Hordak. And then Battlecat and He-Man leap into battle and slice down soldier after soldier. He-Man's might is enough to remind Adora that Hordak isn't the only god in the universe, and then He-Man is forced to scream, "Free the prisoners!" to snap her out of her daze. Adora begins opening the cages. Animals, Eternians, Adora leaves no one behind. She frees the Pegasi and cuddles the one-horned one before forcing it to fly away too. By the time she is done, He-Man has slain every soldier of Hordak and has freed Althara Port. He-Man then commands the people to go with Battlecat, who will lead them to safety and take them to his new fortress in the Dark Hemisphere. He then hugs Battlecat one last time and then sends him on his way. But before the people leave, they chant He-Man's name over and over again. Once they are alone, once again, he apologizes to Adora Adora, but she simply tells him that she understands. But then the power sword begins to glow. He-Man knows that this is a warning, and then the ground beneath their feet opens up and threatens to swallow them whole. Adora tells him that the Fright Zone has infected Althara Port, which is why it is trying to kill them. When all seems lost, Adora's unlikely friend comes to their rescue, the one-horned Pegasus, and he helps save Adora and He-Man from certain death. When in the air, the sorceress's image appears before them, and she tells them to beeline for Anwat Gar. The Forbidden Island awaits them, but she also warns them that the island will test them in unexpected ways because the secrets hidden there do not wish to be discovered. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2013, issue number 16, The Fallacy of Trust. And so our heroes have reached Anwat Gar, and wouldn't you know it, Adora has already named her new mount. He is called Swiftwind. As soon as they land, however, He-Man can feel that the island is haunted by something evil that he can feel in his bone. Little do either of them know that the people of Gar are watching them from the mountaintops. Then, at the shore, they spot the Fright Zone's cancer not far away from the coast, and they know that the island too is about to succumb to the infection. But this isn't the evil that scares He-Man. It's something else, something that has already infected this island here. They continue walking ahead and come across temple ruins. Here they discuss how the Gar used to be a very respected and proud civilization, but now it has fallen. He-Man reminds her how Grayskull was slain by the Gar, and after that these people were ostracized and the island was declared forbidden. The island has been cut off from Eternia for a millennium now, and this is when Adora asks if an entire civilization should be shunned because of the actions of a few people, and He-Man agrees with her. This is too harsh a punishment, and as soon as they say this, they are instantly surrounded by the Gar people. Swiftwind gets spooked while the Gar exclaim that they did not expect to hear such sympathetic words from the heirs of Grayskull. Adora exclaims how the Gar people seemingly walked out of the shadows, and one of them tells her that they have been around the two of them since they arrived on the island. They live in the shadows because no one ever looks in the shadows. Meanwhile, Swiftwind takes off running into the woods, and He-Man tells Adora to go after him. However, this is when the Gar people inform Adam that Adora shouldn't have gone into the woods. When asked why, they reveal that a witch lives there. She haunts the woods, eats children, and makes people lose their minds. Adam tries to run off after her, but the Gar stop him and instead offer to send their own warriors after her. They know the lay of the land and they will help bring her back. They do not want to risk Adam as well getting lost in the woods. Adam gives them 1 hour to find her, and they happily oblige. They then focus on why they have come here. Two heirs of Grayskull returning to Anwat Gar is a momentous day for them, and they want to celebrate this with Adam. Their exile of 1,000 years is finally over, and this is when Adam asks the supposed leader's name, and the man tells him that the Gar no longer have names, but that they wish to have them if given the chance. They lead Adam to an internal chamber of the temple, and then offer him wine. Adam confesses that he doesn't come here seeking revenge, but something else instead. The sorceress told them that the key to defeating the evil horde was here on this island, which is why Adam and Adora are here. He then sips from the chalice and then declares that he is overturning the law forbidding contact with the island and the Gar civilization. They should be free to contact and live on the mainland. They have every right to forge their own path, just like the Eternian. The Gar people kneel before him, and this is when Adam realizes that about an hour has passed and the concern for Adora begins to eat at him. Meanwhile, Adora races through the woods, calling out to Swiftwind, but with every few leaps, she swears she can hear someone's voice on the wind. She can feel someone watching her every move. Regardless, Swiftwind is the priority for now, and so she continues the search, and finally finds him in a clearing. She then begins leading him away, but the only problem is Adora doesn't remember the way back to the temple. And then she hears the voice again, and Adora instinctively pulls out her blade, and the voice becomes louder. It tells her to stay away, but Adora screams and demands answer. The voice says, "It belongs to me," and Adora screams for the entity to show itself. And the entity says, "You will never have it." Adora demands the voice show itself, and this is when a ghost begins to manifest itself out of the shadows. It grows and grows, and then forms the visage of King Grayskull himself. From the moment he was slain, the blood beneath his neck still intact. Adora demands answers. The king points at the blade in her hand, and when Adora looks down, she finds it covered in blood. She turns back to the vision and says, "What does that mean? What are you trying to tell me?" But this is when the ghost of King Grayskull vanishes, and Adora continues her search for a path that leads back to the temple. Meanwhile, He-Man decides that he has waited enough. He decides to find Adora himself, but this is when one of the Gar informs him that Adora has been found, and that they are here to take him to her. Adam follows the people, but when they lead him into a chamber, Adora is nowhere to be seen, and he finds himself face to face with Eternia's best bounty hunter, Triclops. He-Man tries to reach for the power sword, but this is when he realizes that he has been paralyzed by the same poison that had incapacitated King Grayskull 1,000 years ago. Turns out, Triclops is still out looking for himself, the biggest bounty of Eternia, He-Man. And so he is out here to claim it, and wouldn't you know it, Hordak pays well. He arrived here days ago, struck a deal with the Gar, and in exchange for He-Man, they will get a seat at the table on Hordak's new world, and their civilization will thrive again. Triclops reveals that Hordak wants He-Man's blood, and this is when Adora's voice interrupts them. She now looks like a maniac with her blade in her hand, and she declares that if Hordak wants He-Man's blood, then he can have it. She then walks up to Adam, puts her blade underneath his chin, and then rips open his throat. He-Man too has been slain just like King Grayskull by the same blade and by someone whom he called his own. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, 2013, issue number 17, Aftermath of Betrayal. He-Man has been slain, and Triclops can't help but revel in his death and appreciate Adora's technique. She was swift and precise, and if she hadn't held back, she would have decapitated He-Man. Adora menacingly turns to Triclops and tells him that he shouldn't be surprised. This cursed blade was specially crafted to pierce Grayskull and his descendants' enhanced skin. Triclops then jokes that the mighty He-Man never would have expected to die like this, slain by his own estranged sister when he was powerless enough to not even wield his fatal sword. He was butchered like a hog, and Triclops is impressed. Triclops then gathers a vial of He-Man's blood because that's what he's getting paid for. Once the vial is full, he walks out of the temple, and as he does so, Despara tells him to remind Hordak that she still serves him. Triclops boards his ship, but before he leaves, he gives another piece of sound advice to Despara. She should leave the island as soon as possible because the Fright Zone is about to infect soon. The Gar are horrified by this revelation. Hordak promised them glory. He promised them that the Fright Zone wouldn't come for them, and this is when Despara calls them fools. They should have never trusted Hordak because it's quite obvious that Hordak lied to them. They scream that they have been betrayed and run deeper into the island, and this is when Despara returns to the temple to make sure that He-Man is dead. There is no pulse, and it's clear that she has slain her own brother Adam. But then something unexpected happens. Despara snaps out of her daze and returns to being Adora. Why is Adam covered in blood? Why isn't he moving? And then she stares at her blade, which is covered in blood, and everything comes flooding back to her. Her dream, the vision of Grayskull's ghost, and her walking in on her paralyzed brother and butchering him like a pig. Instantly, Adora takes off running into the wood. Where is she going? It doesn't matter. This time she is truly running from her crimes just like Saren, and she calls out to the goddess with each step she takes. She begs for mercy, begs for help, demands consequences for her crime. But when the goddess doesn't answer her prayers, an inconsolable Adora holds the blade to her own torso and gets ready to take her own life. This is when Adora is visited by Teela, who is now the sorceress of Eternia. She asks Adora to stop, to not take her life, and though Teela didn't foresee it happening so soon, she knew this would happen regardless. It's why she had asked Adam to accompany her. She reveals that this is the blade that was used to murder King Grayskull 1,000 years ago, and Adora weeps more and more. Why would Teela do such a thing? Why give her the blade if she knew it would drive her mad, if she knew Adam would be slain? And this is when Teela tells her that her fate works in mysterious ways, and it was vital for her to possess the blade, because now she can know what she must do. But an inconsolable Adora hides her face because Adam is dead, the last member of her family is dead, and nothing matters anymore. And this is when Teela treats her as a weeping child, and tells her that she will show Adora everything. Teela then conjures up a vision of what happened 1,000 years ago. She shows her the aftermath of King Grayskull's death. Saren, who was wielding the same blade, was on her knees weeping as the king's blood continued to pool on the ground around her. Little did she know that there was a magical rune etched in the floor of the throne room, and once filled with the king's blood, this rune was activated, and it revealed a hidden chamber, a corridor that led to the Forge of Grayskull, the same forge in which King Grayskull forged the Power Sword. But here lies Eternia's biggest secret. The Power Sword wasn't the only sword forged by Grayskull. He forged a second sword, the Sword of Protection, a secret sword that was found by Saren. The Power Sword was forged to defeat and banish Hordak, and the Sword of Protection was forged to protect Eternia in case the Power Sword ever fell into the wrong hand. And then the unthinkable happened in that moment. Saren remembered what Adi had told her, how he had lied to her and told her that she would bear a child in the future, a child who would become the savior of Eternia. And so in that moment, Saren began to believe in the fake prophecy. She began to think like a mother. A mother is protective, selfish when it comes to her own child. And so Saren took took the Sword of Protection for herself, for her child who would save all of Eternia in the future. She took the sword and fled Castle Grayskull, and in her absence, Adi and his forces prevailed over the forces of Eternia. For a while, the Gar ruled Eternia. Their rule was ruthless and unforgiving until they were overthrown by King Grayskull's last surviving son. All of the Gar on the mainland were slain. Adi is the only one who managed to escape. The power sword was retrieved, and Adi was eventually found, mangled, and terrorized to death. Grayskull's last surviving son assumed that he was poisoned, but seeing his body in the vision makes it clear to Adora that he wasn't poisoned, but instead killed by something sinister. The Resistance then hid away the power sword until it was ready to be wielded by the Chosen One, Grayskull's rightful heir. But as for the Sword of Protection, no one ever knew about it, so no one ever looked for it. Teela then shows Adora a cave on Anwat Gar and explains that Saren is still alive. She has turned into an immortal monster, cursed by the blood of the king she spilled. This monster is the fabled witch of Anwat Gar, the one that lives in the woods. She is the reason why fate has brought Adora here. Now that the cursed blade has spilled Grayskull's blood again, it has been activated, and it will lead her to Saren like a dowsing rod. Adora is supposed to retrieve the Sword of Protection. It is meant for her as the heir of Grayskull, but Adora feels too lost. She knows what she has done. She doesn't recognize herself anymore. She is no true heir. She is a monster just like Saren. She killed her brother, butchered him, and this is when Teela tries to console her. She tells her that the cursed blade brings out the worst in people, and that is exactly what it did to Adora, brought out the worst of her, which was Despara. The cursed blade is the only thing that could defeat what Saren has become now. The wheels of destiny are in motion, and Adora must act now before Anwat Gar is consumed by the Fright Zone. But this is when Adora turns her anger on Teela. She blames her. This was all her doing. This wasn't fate. She was the one who gifted the cursed blade to her. She was the one who asked Adam to accompany her on this journey. And when Teela tries to justify herself by saying that the goddess works in mysterious ways, Adora doubles down. She turns away from Teela and tells her that she played her, and because of that, Adam is now dead. And this is when Teela offers her hope. It is not too late to save Adam. The Sword of Protection can heal, and Adam's soul won't pass on to the world of the dead until the island has been taken over by the Fright Zone, which is why she needs to hurry. Adora tells Teela that she will do it, but that she would never be able to trust her again. She then calls out to Swiftwind and then gets on him, but before she flies away, she looks Teela in the eyes and reminds her how her only friend used her, played her to murder her own brother, Teela's childhood friend. And though she may never forgive herself, she will also never forgive Teela. And then Adora flies away and silent tears drip down Teela's cheek. Adora uses the blade to reach Saren's cave, and when she dismounts, she orders Swiftwind to stay nearby. Adora then walks in, and as she enters the cave, she embraces and accepts the mask she wore as Despara when she was allied with Hordak. Inside the cave, she spots the Sword of Protection across a pool of blood, but as soon as she lays eyes on it, the witch Saren reveals herself, and in the same voice Adora heard in the forest, she screams that Adora shall not have the sword. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2013, issue number 18, The Witch from Dream. And thus the battle has begun, and Saren violently and ruthlessly attacks Adora, who now wears the mask of Despara. Saren's entire form has been contorted. She is unrecognizable, too tall to be human, too thin to be like a skeleton. Her nose is missing and she has fangs for teeth. The two exchange words with each blow. Saren is defiant. The blood of Grayskull will be spilled once again today. She will not let Adora have the Sword of Protection. It is meant for her progeny. Saren then grabs the Sword of Protection and begins to fight off Adora. She declares that the sword may burn her flesh by merely touching it. Grayskull's magic may still fend her off, but it is a small price to pay for Adora's head. Adora defiantly states that she will have the sword and she will save Adam. This is when Saren cackles loudly and mocks Adora. Why would she care? She is the one who butchered her brother in the first place. She then begins to manipulate and toy with Adora's mind, begins to remind her how her family supposedly abandoned her at birth, how the sorceress chose her fate and handed her over to Hordak, and how she was brainwashed, and how the deaths of her family members began with her adoptive mother, Shadow Weaver. This eats at Adora and gives Saren an opening to grab Adora's face. She declares that Adora is useless. She doesn't have the ruthlessness of Despara or the power of Grayskull. She is merely a puppet of fate. Saren then rips off Adora's mask and chucks her away, and this is when Adora angrily gets up and declares that she will no longer allow others to dictate her destiny. From now on, she will be the master of her own fate. But Saren isn't even listening to her. She mocks Adora and then picks up the necklace she ripped off her neck. She opens it and then laughs as she watches the image of Adora's mother inside. Another lost family member, eh? Adora is leaving quite the trail of bodies in her wake no matter where she goes. And Adora doesn't take kindly to these words. She redoubles her efforts and begins attacking Saren with renewed vigor. Saren simply dodges her blows and then tries to toy with Adora again by declaring that even her biological mother never wanted her. She abandoned her and forgot about her so easily. Her mother never thought or cared about Adora's destiny. And once again, Adora reminds her that she has chosen to be the master of her own destiny, and she has chosen Grayskull. Suddenly, something unexpected happens. When Adora says, "I choose Grayskull," the Sword of Protection gets activated. It had been waiting to hear those words for a millennium, and its activation burns Saren's hand intensely. The fire spreads the very next second and engulfs her entire arm, and this gives Adora an opening to thrust the cursed blade through her throat. With Saren slain, the cursed blade now serves no purpose, and so it turns to dust. Then Adora goes and picks up the necklace Adam gave her. Then, as if she has done this a million times, Adora grabs the Sword of Protection, raises it in the air, and then screams, "For the honor of Grayskull, I am She-Ra!" And boom! With a loud explosion, Adora transforms into She-Ra, and now she has been bestowed with new legendary armor. As Saren withers away, she says, "The light blinds me. Long ages end. I perish, but my son will live on." And then Saren's entire body turns to blood, leaving only her skull face behind. She-Ra then mounts Swiftwind and flies back to the temple to save Adam. She rushes to the altar where she left his body and holds the Sword of Protection over it. At first, nothing happens, and Adora thinks that the gates of death have closed for Adam's soul. But then the sword begins to glow. Adam's wounds heal themselves, and he wakes up and comes back to life. She-Ra welcomes her brother, but then tells him that they have important work to do, and they can talk later. She then turns his gaze toward the island and watches it getting engulfed by Hordak's Fright Zone. And upon realizing what needs to be done, they both grab their respective swords and scream, "By the power of Grayskull, I have the power!" They both transform. The true power of Grayskull is unleashed, and the Fright Zone infecting the island is instantly destroyed. And this is when He-Man realizes that they are finally ready to take on Hordak and his evil forces. But then they are approached by the Gar people, and they instantly kneel and beg for mercy. They were scared. Their island was about to be destroyed, which is why they sided with Hordak. And though He-Man doesn't like it, he knows that it is the right thing to do. He tells them that they are free regardless of their crimes, and that they should do better in the future. Meanwhile, back at Castle Grayskull, which has now been taken over by the Fright Zone, and is the home of Hordak's throne on Eternia, Triclops arrives, and he is received by Grizzlor and Catra. They escort him to the throne room where the visage of Hordak appears, and Hordak declares that with the power of Grayskull's blood, Hordak now has the might to lift his banishment and the power to unlock the secrets of Castle Grayskull. Hordak will now claim the power of Grayskull for himself once and for all.